A mafia boss confined to a wheelchair for 12 years suddenly stood up in the middle of a crowded nightclub, all because a drunk American stranger grabbed his chair and demanded he dance. No one had touched him without fear or pity since the day bullets shattered his spine. But this reckless woman with wild curls and whiskey breath saw only a man, not a monster. When their hands met, something impossible happened. His dead legs moved. Pain exploded through nerves that had been silent for over a decade. And Kang Taemin, Seoul's most feared criminal king, took his first steps in 12 years. Then she vanished. Now he'll burn the city down to find her again. Thank you for joining this story. If you want to see how far this journey goes, please hit the like button and comment with your city so I can see where my stories are reaching. Let's begin. Rain battered the glass walls of Velvet Underground like fists demanding entry. Inside, the bass pounded through expensive sound systems while bodies moved beneath rotating neon lights that turned sweat into glitter and loneliness into something that looked like fun from a distance. The club sat in the heart of Gangnam, 3 stories of chrome and leather, and people pretending they belonged there. It was Tuesday night, which meant the real players came out. Not the weekend crowd trying to forget their office jobs, but the ones who owned the offices, the buildings, the streets outside. Kang Taemin sat in his usual corner on the 3rd floor, watching everything and saying nothing. His wheelchair was custom-built, black titanium with chrome accents that caught the light when he moved. Which he didn't, much. 2 bodyguards flanked him at a respectful distance, close enough to intervene but far enough to let him breathe. The table in front of him held a single glass of whiskey he hadn't touched in 40 minutes. He wasn't here to drink. He was here because the apartment felt like a tomb, and the mansion felt worse. And at least in Velvet Underground, he could watch people move without them staring back at him with pity or fear or that careful, neutral expression that was somehow worse than both. 12 years. 12 years since Lee Min-ho's crew ambushed him outside a warehouse in Incheon. 12 years since 6 bullets tore through his body and one of them found his spine. 12 years since he woke up in a hospital bed and realized his legs would never work again, that everything below his waist was just dead weight he'd drag around for the rest of his life. They told him he was lucky to be alive. Taemin spent the first 6 months wishing they'd aimed higher. But he didn't die. He rebuilt. The Kang family empire didn't crumble just because its heir couldn't walk anymore. If anything, Taemin became more dangerous in the wheelchair than he'd ever been on his feet. People underestimated him now. That was their mistake. He'd learned to weaponize stillness, to make his silence more threatening than other men shouting. When Taemin spoke, people listened, because they knew he didn't waste words anymore. The club's VIP section curved around the 3rd floor like a throne room overlooking the chaos below. Taemin could see everything from here, the main dance floor packed with bodies grinding against each other, the 2nd floor bar where deals were made between shots, the private booths where married men met women who weren't their wives. He recognized half the faces: criminals, politicians, corporate executives who'd signed contracts with his family's legitimate fronts and never asked where the money actually came from. His phone buzzed. Taemin glanced at the screen. Junho. The shipment cleared customs. No issues. He typed back 1 word. Good. That was the thing about being paralyzed in this world. People expected you to be weak, to need help, to delegate everything because you couldn't physically enforce your own orders anymore. Taemin made sure they understood that was bullshit within the first year. You didn't need to walk into a room to own it. You just needed everyone in that room to know exactly what you were capable of ordering someone else to do. Lee Min-ho learned that lesson 3 months after the shooting. They found him in pieces scattered across 4 districts. Taemin took another non-sip of his whiskey and watched a woman in a red dress stumble near the stairs. Drunk, probably. Her friends caught her before she fell, laughing like it was hilarious instead of dangerous. He felt nothing watching her. He felt nothing watching any of them anymore. That was the trade-off, he supposed. You couldn't feel your legs. Eventually you stopped feeling much of anything else either. The music shifted to something with a heavier beat. The crowd on the dance floor surged in response, bodies pressing closer together in that way drunk people convinced themselves was dancing. Taemin's gaze drifted across the massive movement, not looking for anything in particular, just watching the way people still moved so easily, so carelessly, like their bodies were just things they inhabited instead of prisons, They were locked inside. Then he saw her. Or rather, he saw the chaos she was causing. A woman with dark, messy curls was shoving her way through the crowd like she owned the place, completely ignoring the angry looks people shot her way when she bumped into them. She wore jeans and a leather jacket in a club where everyone else had dressed up, and she moved with the kind of reckless energy that said she'd either had way too much to drink or genuinely didn't give a damn what anyone thought. Probably both. She wasn't particularly tall, maybe 5'6" in the boots she was wearing, but she moved like she was 7 feet tall and made of fire. Taemin watched her nearly knock over someone's drink, saw the guy start to complain, watched her flash a grin and say something that made him laugh instead of yell. She kept moving, kept pushing forward like she was looking for something specific in the crowd. Then she looked up, straight at him. Taemin felt something shift in his chest. Not physical, psychological. The way her eyes locked onto his from across the entire club, through the lights and the smoke and the bodies between them, felt like being seen for the first time in 12 years. Not looked at, seen. There was a difference. She smiled. Not the careful smile people gave him. Not the pitying smile, or the nervous smile, or the calculating smile of someone trying to figure out what he could do for them. Just a smile that said she'd found what she was looking for and was about to do something incredibly stupid about it. Taemin's bodyguards noticed her the moment she started climbing the stairs to the VIP section. One of them moved to intercept. "Sir, should we—" "Wait," Taemin said quietly. He wanted to see what she'd do. She made it past the velvet rope at the top of the stairs by flirting with the security guard, apparently. Taemin couldn't hear what she said, but he saw the guard laugh and step aside. Impressive. Most people couldn't charm their way past his security. Most people were smart enough not to try. This woman wasn't smart. Or maybe she was smarter than everyone else here. She crossed the VIP floor in a straight line, ignoring the tables full of Seoul's elite, who watched her with expressions ranging from confusion to outrage. She didn't care. She just kept walking until she was standing directly in front of Taemin's table, close enough that he could smell whiskey and cigarettes and something floral underneath. Her eyes were brown, dark brown, almost black in the club lighting, and completely fearless. "Hi," she said in English, American accent thick and unapologetic. "You've been sitting here alone all night looking miserable as hell, and I've decided that's unacceptable." Taemin stared at her. His bodyguards moved closer, hands drifting toward weapons they kept hidden under tailored jackets. "I'm fine," he said in English, his own accent heavier, but clear enough. "Liar." She leaned against his table, completely ignoring the armed men on either side of him. "You're sitting in the best club in Seoul on a Tuesday night, you haven't touched your drink, and you're watching everyone else have fun like you're documenting evidence for a crime scene. That's not fine. That's depressing." "You should leave," one of the bodyguards said. She didn't even look at him. "What's your name?" she asked Taemin. He could have told her to go away. Could have nodded to his men and let them escort her back downstairs. Could have done what he'd done to every other person who tried to talk to him in this club, shut them down with silence until they got uncomfortable and left. Instead, he said, "Taemin." "Elena." She stuck out her hand like they were meeting at a business conference instead of a nightclub. "You want to dance, Taemin?" The question was so absurd he almost laughed. Almost. "No," he said. "Why not?" "I can't." "Can't or won't?" "Can't." Her eyes dropped to the wheelchair for the first time. Taemin watched her face carefully, waiting for the expression to change, waiting for the pity to creep in, or the awkwardness, or that careful neutral mask people wore when they realized they'd made an assumption about someone's body and been wrong. Elena just looked back up at him and shrugged. "So what?" she said. "Half the people on that dance floor can barely stand and they're managing fine. Come on." "I'm paralyzed," Taemin said flatly, because apparently she needed it spelled out. "I can't feel my legs. Haven't been able to for 12 years. Dancing isn't an option." "Dancing is always an option." Elena walked around the table before either bodyguard could stop her. "You've got arms, right? You can move your upper body?" "That's not—" She grabbed the handles of his wheelchair. Both bodyguards pulled their guns. Taemin raised one hand, stopping them. His heart was pounding. When was the last time someone had touched his wheelchair without asking? When was the last time anyone had touched him at all outside of medical necessity or violence? "What are you doing?" he asked quietly. Elena grinned down at him. "Something stupid. You in?" Then she pushed. Taemin's wheelchair rolled forward before he could protest. The bodyguards started to follow, but he waved them back, some part of his brain recognizing that this woman wasn't a threat, even if she was completely insane. Elena navigated through the VIP section like she'd done this before, ignoring the stares from every table they passed. She pushed him straight to the elevator that led down to the main floor. "This is a terrible idea," Taemin said. "The best ones usually are." The elevator doors opened. Elena rolled him inside, hit the button for the ground floor, and leaned against the wall like they were just two people going somewhere normal instead of a drunk American pushing a mafia boss in a wheelchair toward a crowded dance floor for reasons that made no sense whatsoever. "You're not from here," Taemin observed. "Dallas," Elena said. "Well, originally, I've been traveling for a while. Korea's my last stop before I head home." "When?" "Friday. 3 days." She looked at him. "Why are you really sitting up there alone?" The elevator descended. Taemin felt the bass getting louder as they dropped toward the main floor. "Because I don't belong down there anymore," he said honestly. "I used to, before. But now people see the chair first and me second, if they see me at all. So I stay upstairs where I can at least pretend I'm choosing to be alone instead of having it chosen for me." Elena was quiet for a moment. "That's the saddest thing I've heard all week," she said. "And I spent yesterday at the war memorial." The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto chaos. Music so loud it rattled his bones. Lights flashing across hundreds of bodies packed together. The smell of sweat and alcohol and expensive perfume mixing into something that was almost overwhelming after an hour of filtered air upstairs. Elena pushed him straight into it. People scattered when they saw the wheelchair coming. Some of them recognized him. He saw the fear flash across their faces, saw them grab their friends and move quickly out of the way. Others just looked annoyed at having their space invaded. Elena didn't care about any of them. She just kept pushing until they were dead center in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded on all sides by strangers. Then she locked his wheelchair brakes and came around to face him. "Hi," she said again, like they were meeting for the first time. "This is insane," Taemin told her. "Probably." She held out both hands. "Dance with me anyway." "I can't stand," he said, enunciating each word clearly so she'd finally understand and let this go. Elena's smile didn't waver. "Then try." Something in her voice made it sound less like a challenge and more like an invitation, like she genuinely believed he could do it if he wanted to badly enough, like the 12 years of medical opinions and physical therapy and his own body's absolute refusal to respond to anything below his waist were just obstacles instead of permanent reality. It was the stupidest thing anyone had ever suggested to him. Taemin took her hands. The moment their skin touched, he felt it. Not in his legs, chest, in his lungs, in parts of himself he'd forgotten existed. Elena's hands were warm and rough with calluses he didn't expect. She held on tight, not careful, not gentle, just firm and present and real. "Pull," she said. "This won't work." "Pull anyway." Taemin pulled. His arms still worked fine. 12 years of wheelchair use had made his upper body stronger than it had ever been when he could walk. He pulled himself up, using Elena's weight as leverage, expecting absolutely nothing to happen below his waist. His right leg twitched. Taemin froze. That wasn't possible. That didn't happen. His legs didn't move. They were dead. The doctors had been very clear about that. Spinal cord damage was permanent. The nerves were severed. Nothing below the injury site would ever function again. His left leg trembled. "Holy shit," Elena whispered. Pain exploded through his lower back like someone had set his spine on fire. Taemin's vision went white. He couldn't breathe. Every nerve ending he'd thought was dead started screaming all at once, sending signals his brain had forgotten how to process. It felt like being torn apart from the inside out. It felt like dying and being born at the same time. It felt like his legs were waking up. "Stop," he gasped. "Stop, I can't." "Yes, you can." Elena's voice cut through the pain. "Stay with me, Taemin. Just a little more. You're almost there." Almost where? He couldn't see anything but light and couldn't hear anything but his own pulse hammering in his ears and couldn't feel anything but agony radiating out from his spine in waves that made him want to vomit. His hands were shaking. Sweat poured down his face. The music kept pounding around them, but it sounded distant now, like it was coming from another world. Elena held on. Taemin pulled harder. His feet touched the ground. The sensation was so foreign he almost didn't recognize it. Pressure. Weight. The floor existed beneath him again. He could feel it. Actually feel it, not just know intellectually that it was there. The rubber soles of his shoes made contact with polished concrete, and his brain registered the information, and holy God, he could feel his feet. "Stand up," Elena said. "I don't know how anymore." "Yes, you do. Your body remembers. Trust it." Trust. What a joke. Taemin didn't trust anything, least of all his own body. But Elena was still holding his hands, and the pain was starting to shift into something else, something that felt less like destruction and more like construction, like his nervous system was rebuilding itself in real time. He pushed. His legs straightened. Slowly, shaking like a newborn animal, held together by nothing but Elena's grip and sheer impossible will, Kang Taemin stood up. The dance floor went silent. Or maybe the music was still playing and he just couldn't hear it over the sound of his own ragged breathing. Taemin swayed, his legs threatening to give out every half second, muscles that hadn't worked in over a decade suddenly being asked to support his full weight. He was going to fall. He was going to collapse right here in front of everyone. Elena stepped closer, close enough that he could lean against her if he needed to. "Look at you," she said softly. "You're standing." He was. He was standing. In the middle of velvet underground, surrounded by hundreds of people who'd stopped dancing to stare at the miracle or hallucination or whatever the hell this was happening right in front of them. Taemin looked down at Elena. She was shorter than him. He'd forgotten what it felt like to look down at someone. For 12 years, everyone had looked down at him, and now here he was, vertical again, seeing the world from a height he thought he'd lost forever. "How?" he managed. "I have no idea." Elena smiled. "But we should probably dance before you fall over." She started moving. Small movements, just swaying really, barely more than standing in place with rhythm. Taemin tried to follow. His legs didn't cooperate properly. They were shaking too hard, responding to signals his brain was sending too late or too early or in the wrong language. But Elena held on, kept him steady, adjusted her movements to match his lack of coordination instead of expecting him to match hers. They danced. It was ugly, uncoordinated, painful. His legs kept trying to buckle and Elena kept catching him before he fell. Sweat soaked through his shirt. The pain in his spine hadn't stopped. It had just become background noise he was learning to function through. Every second was an active choice not to collapse. And it was the most incredible thing Taemin had felt in 12 years. The crowd started cheering. He heard it now, cutting through his own internal chaos. People were clapping, shouting, taking out their phones to record this. The mafia boss, who'd been paralyzed for over a decade, was standing on the dance floor, moving, dancing with some random woman nobody recognized. This was going to be all over social media by morning. Taemin didn't care. Elena laughed, pure and bright and completely inappropriate for the moment, and somehow that made everything better. Made it feel less like a medical miracle and more like something normal people did. Just dancing, just moving, just being alive in a way he'd forgotten was possible. "What's your last name?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Carter." She spun him slightly, and he almost died, but didn't. "Why?" "Because I need to know who to thank when this is over. Thank me by not dying in my arms. That'd really kill the vibe." The song changed. Something slower. Elena adjusted their position, moving Taemin's arms until one was around her waist and the other was gripping her shoulder for support. This was less dancing and more just holding each other upright and swaying, but it worked. It was working. He was still standing. "How long are you in Seoul?" Taemin asked. "I told you. 3 days." "Stay longer." "Can't. Tickets already booked. Besides, I've got a life to get back to in Dallas. Job interview on Monday." "What kind of job?" "Marketing." Elena made a face. "Boring corporate stuff. I spent the last 3 years traveling because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I still can't, but money's running out, so it's time to be a grown-up, I guess." She sounded bitter about it. Taemin understood that. Life had a way of forcing you into shapes you didn't want to fit into. "What if I offered you a different job?" he heard himself say. Elena pulled back slightly to look at him. Doing what? I don't know yet. Something that keeps you here. You don't even know me. I know you're the only person in 12 years who's looked at me and seen a man instead of a wheelchair. I know you made my legs work when every doctor in Seoul said that was impossible. I know you're leaving in 3 days, and if I let you walk away without getting your contact information, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. The words came out raw and honest in a way Taemin hadn't spoken to anyone since before the shooting. Elena stared at him like she was trying to figure out if he was serious or insane. You're intense, she said finally. I'm honest. That's a dangerous combination. Is that a no? She smiled. Give me your phone. Taemin's phone was in his jacket pocket. It took some maneuvering to get it out without falling over, but Elena steadied him and he managed. She took it, typed something, handed it back. Her number was saved under Elena Carter, miracle worker. That's presumptuous, Taemin said. So is offering a stranger a job because she made you stand up. We're both making questionable decisions tonight. At least mine has a sense of humor. The song ended. Taemin's legs were screaming. He'd been standing for maybe 5 minutes total, and it felt like he'd run a marathon. His body was starting to shut down, the adrenaline that had gotten him this far wearing off and leaving only exhaustion and pain in its wake. I need to sit, he admitted. Okay. Elena helped him back into the wheelchair. The transition was awkward and probably looked terrible, but Taemin didn't care. The moment his weight was off his legs, the pain started to fade. Not disappear, just reduce to a manageable level. He could breathe again. The crowd was still watching. Some people were clapping. Others looked suspicious, like they thought this was some kind of publicity stunt. Taemin ignored all of them. He was looking at Elena. Thank you, he said. For what? For treating me like I was worth the effort. Something shifted in her expression. The playful drunk girl who'd crashed into his world faded slightly, revealing someone sadder underneath. Someone who understood being invisible in a crowd of people. Everyone's worth the effort, Elena said quietly. Some people just forget that about themselves. She started to turn away. Taemin grabbed her wrist. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. You really don't have to I will. Elena looked at his hand on her wrist, then back at his face. Whatever she saw there made her nod. Okay, she said. Tomorrow. Then she disappeared into the crowd. Taemin's bodyguards materialized out of nowhere, flanking him immediately. They had questions written all over their faces, but they were smart enough not to ask them here. One of them pushed his wheelchair back toward the elevator. The other cleared a path through the crowd. Taemin didn't look back. He was trying to process what had just happened. His legs had moved. After 12 years of nothing, they'd responded. Not perfectly, not even well, but they'd moved. The medical impossibility of that was going to require actual doctors to examine him, run tests, figure out what the hell had changed in his body. But beneath all the scientific questions was a simpler truth. Elena Carter had touched him, and he'd stood up. Whatever that meant, whoever she really was beyond a reckless American with 3 days left in Seoul, Taemin needed to understand it. Needed to understand her. Because people didn't just randomly heal paralyzed crime lords in nightclubs. That wasn't normal. Nothing about tonight was normal. His phone buzzed as the elevator climbed back toward the VIP floor. Unknown number, don't get weird about this. He smiled despite himself and typed back, Taemin, too late. The response came immediately. Elena, figures. Good night, Taemin. Taemin. Good night, Elena Carter. The elevator doors opened. His bodyguards pushed him back to his table where his untouched whiskey was still waiting. The club had returned to normal operations, people dancing and drinking and pretending they hadn't just witnessed something impossible. Taemin picked up his glass and finished it in one swallow. Tomorrow, he'd call her. Tomorrow, he'd figure out what happened tonight and why his legs had responded to her touch. Tomorrow, he'd start unraveling the mystery of the drunk American who'd crashed into his carefully controlled world and turned it upside down. But tonight, he just sat there and let himself feel something he hadn't felt in 12 years. Hope. Taemin didn't sleep. He lay in his bed staring at the ceiling of his penthouse apartment while his legs twitched involuntarily beneath the sheets. Small movements, barely noticeable, but they were there. Every few minutes his right foot would flex or his left knee would bend slightly, and each time it happened his entire body went rigid with shock because dead things weren't supposed to move. At 4 in the morning, he gave up pretending rest was possible and called his private doctor. Dr. Kang Soo-jin arrived at sunrise with a portable medical kit and the kind of exhausted professionalism that came from being woken up by a mafia boss before dawn. She was in her 50s, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, and she'd been treating the Kang family for 2 decades. She'd seen Taemin at his worst, bleeding out on an operating table, screaming through physical therapy, catatonic with depression when he realized the paralysis was permanent. Nothing surprised her anymore, until she ran the tests. "This doesn't make sense," Soo-jin said, staring at her tablet screen. "Your reflexes are responding. Not normally, but they're responding. Muscle tone has improved. You have sensation in areas that were completely dead last month." Taemin sat on the edge of his bed wearing sweatpants and nothing else. His legs looked the same as they always had, pale from lack of sun, thinner than they'd been before the shooting, but not atrophied because he'd forced himself through passive exercise routines for years just to maintain circulation. They looked like legs that didn't work. Except now they did. Sometimes. A little. "What changed?" Soo-jin asked. "I don't know." "Taemin." "I don't know," he repeated, harsher this time. "Last night I stood up. I walked. Sort of. For maybe 5 minutes. Then I sat back down and it stopped working." Soo-jin set down her tablet and looked at him with the expression doctors used when they thought you were lying to them. "Spinal cord injuries don't spontaneously heal," she said carefully, "especially not after 12 years. If something changed in your body, there has to be a reason. New medication, different therapy routine, experimental treatment you didn't tell me about." Taemin thought about Elena's hands, the way her touch had felt like electricity. The impossible moment when his legs had responded to his brain's commands for the first time in over a decade. "No," he lied. Soo-jin didn't believe him. He could tell. But she was smart enough not to push. "I want you at the hospital this afternoon," she said. "Full neurological workup. MRI, nerve conduction studies, everything. If your spine is healing somehow, we need to understand why before you hurt yourself trying to walk again." "Fine. And Taemin?" Soo-jin paused at the door. "Don't get your hopes up. Sometimes the body does strange things. Phantom sensations. Psychosomatic responses. It doesn't always mean recovery." She left before he could argue. Taemin looked down at his legs. His right foot flexed again, toes curling against the hardwood floor. He could feel it. Actually feel the wood grain beneath his skin. The temperature difference between the heated bedroom and the cooler floor. Sensation he'd thought was gone forever. His phone sat on the nightstand. Elena's number was still saved under Miracle Worker. He picked up the phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. This was stupid. She was a stranger. A drunk American tourist who'd probably done the whole thing on a dare and had already forgotten his name. Whatever happened last night was an anomaly, a one-time event caused by adrenaline or coincidence or sheer force of will. It had nothing to do with her specifically. Taemin texted her anyway. "Taemin, coffee?" The response took 3 minutes. "Elena, it's 6 a.m. Taemin, is that a no? Elena, it's a give me an hour to look human. Where? He sent her an address in Gangnam, a cafe he owned through enough shell companies that nobody would recognize his connection to it. Quiet, private, the kind of place where people minded their own business because they were conducting their own questionable meetings. Elena, fancy. Should I dress up? Taemin, come as you are. Elena, dangerous thing to say to someone who sleeps in band t-shirts. He smiled despite himself and set the phone down, then spent the next hour trying to figure out what the hell he was doing. Dvokek. The cafe was called Gray Morning, and it looked exactly like its name. Minimalist concrete walls, dark wood furniture, soft lighting that made everyone look either mysterious or hungover, depending on their life choices. Taemin arrived early and positioned himself at a corner table facing the entrance. Old habits. Always see who's coming before they see you. His bodyguards waited outside in the car. Elena showed up 7 minutes late wearing ripped jeans, combat boots, and a faded Nirvana shirt under her leather jacket. Her hair was still messy, tied up in a knot that looked accidental. No makeup. She looked like she'd rolled out of bed and directly onto the subway. She looked perfect. You own this place, don't you? Elena said, dropping into the chair across from him. What makes you think that? Because we're the only people here and nobody asked us to order anything. She glanced around the empty cafe. Also, the staff keeps looking at you like you're going to fire them if the espresso machine makes too much noise. Taemin didn't deny it. A waitress appeared with 2 Americanos without being asked. Elena picked hers up and took a long drink before speaking again. So, she said, last night was weird. That's one word for it. You texted me at 6 in the morning. That's another kind of weird. I couldn't sleep. Elena studied him over the rim of her coffee cup. Her eyes were clearer than they'd been last night. Less alcohol and chaos, more calculation, like she was trying to figure out if he was dangerous or just desperate. Your legs, she said. Are they still working? Sometimes. A little. Not like last night. Does that happen a lot? The sometimes working thing? Never. Before last night, they didn't work at all. For 12 years. Elena set down her cup carefully. And you think I did that somehow? You were the variable. Everything else stayed constant. I'm not magic, Taemin. I'm just a person who drinks too much and makes bad decisions. Then explain it. I can't. Try. She was quiet for a moment, fingers tracing the edge of her cup like she was buying time to think. Outside the cafe windows, Seoul was waking up. Morning traffic, business people in suits heading to offices, the city moving forward like it always did, indifferent to the impossible thing that had happened inside Velvet Underground last night. When I was a kid, Elena said slowly, my grandmother used to say some people carried luck in their hands. Good luck, bad luck, healing luck, breaking luck. She said you could tell by watching what happened when they touched things. Plants grew faster, electronics broke, animals calmed down. She looked up at Taemin. I always thought it was bullshit. But my ex-boyfriend's chronic back pain disappeared after a month of dating me, and my best friend's migraine stopped when I started doing her hair before work. And 3 different people have told me I have the best hugs they've ever experienced, which is a weird thing to have in common. Taemin leaned forward. You think you healed me. I think maybe I helped. I don't know how. I don't know why. And I definitely don't know if it's permanent or temporary or just your body doing something strange that would have happened anyway. Last night you told me to try standing up. You sounded certain it would work. I wasn't certain. I was drunk and optimistic. There's a difference. You held my hands and said my body would remember, like you knew. Elena's jaw tightened. I say a lot of things when I'm drunk, doesn't make them true. But she wasn't meeting his eyes anymore. Taemin recognized evasion when he saw it. She knew something. Maybe not the full truth, but something she wasn't saying out loud. Touch me again, he said. What? Your hand. Give it to me. Elena hesitated, then slowly reached across the table and placed her hand palm up on the surface between them. Taemin put his hand over hers. The sensation was immediate. Warmth spread up his arm like heated water through pipes. Not painful this time, just warm and strange and completely wrong according to every law of biology he understood. The warmth traveled down his spine and his legs started tingling. Holy shit, Taemin breathed. You feel that? Yes. Elena tried to pull her hand back. Taemin held on. Don't, he said. Not yet. The tingling intensified. His toes curled inside his shoes. His calf muscles twitched. Nothing major. Nothing like the full standing and walking from last night. But it was there. Undeniable. His body was responding to her touch in ways it hadn't responded to anything else in 12 years. Elena's hand was shaking. This is insane, she whispered. This is a miracle. Miracles aren't real. Neither is spontaneous spinal cord regeneration. But here we are. She finally yanked her hand back. The warmth faded immediately. The tingling in his legs dulled to almost nothing. Taemin felt the absence like a physical loss, which was stupid because you couldn't miss something you'd never actually had back. Elena stood up. I need to go. Wait, I have plans, tourist stuff, the palace thing. I can't. She was backing toward the door. This is too weird. I'm sorry. Elena. She stopped, turned back. Her expression was caught between fear and fascination, and Taemin understood that feeling completely because he was experiencing the same thing. I leave Friday, Elena said. 2 days. Whatever this is, It doesn't matter because I'll be gone and you'll be fine, and we can both pretend last night was just a really strange dream. What if I don't want to pretend? Then you're going to be disappointed. She left before he could respond. Taemin sat alone in the empty cafe, staring at his hand where hers had been. The warmth was completely gone now. His legs felt dead again. Normal. Whatever normal meant for a body that couldn't decide if it was broken or healing. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Gui? Junho, he said when his head of security answered. I need you to find everything about someone. Name's Elena Carter. American, from Dallas. Currently staying somewhere in Seoul, flying out Friday. I want hotel records, visa information, previous travel history, employment records, family connections, everything. Sir, is there a security concern? No, this is personal. A pause. Junho had worked for the Kang family long enough to know when not to ask questions. I'll have a report by tonight, Junho said. Taemin hung up and stared at his coffee. This was crossing a line. Invading someone's privacy because they'd been kind to him. But he needed to understand what was happening, and Elena clearly wasn't going to tell him voluntarily. If her touch could heal him, actually genuinely heal him, then she was the most valuable person in his world right now. And Taemin had built an empire on understanding the value of things. The hospital test took 4 hours and confirmed what Dr. Soo-jin had said that morning. Something was changing in his body. The MRI showed minimal inflammation around his spinal injury site. Nerve conduction studies revealed electrical activity in pathways that should have been completely severed. Muscle biopsies indicated cellular regeneration that shouldn't be possible in long-term paralysis cases. I've never seen anything like this, the neurologist said, showing Taemin a screen full of data he didn't understand. Whatever's happening, it started very recently, within the last 24 to 48 hours. Exactly when he'd met Elena. Is it permanent? Taemin asked. I have no idea. The fact that you're showing any regeneration at all is unprecedented. Whether it continues or stops or reverses, I couldn't begin to predict. What do I do? Physical therapy? Immediately. If your nerves are reconnecting, we need to retrain your muscles to respond properly, but carefully. You could hurt yourself if you push too hard before your body's ready. Taemin scheduled therapy sessions for the following week, knowing he had no intention of waiting that long. If Elena's touch was somehow causing this, he needed her to touch him again. And again. As many times as it took to understand whether this was real recovery or just temporary improvement that would fade the moment she got on a plane to Dallas. His phone buzzed with a message from Junho. Junho. Report ready? Should I send it to your secure email? Taemin. Bring it to the penthouse. In person. He left the hospital and went home to wait. Junho arrived at 8 p.m. with a tablet and the kind of carefully neutral expression that meant he'd found something interesting. He was in his early 40s, built like a boxer, and had been with the Kang family since before Taemin's father died. Loyal to a fault. Dangerous when necessary. Elena Carter, Junho said, pulling up files on his tablet. 28 years old, born in Dallas, Texas. Parents deceased. Mother died of cancer when Elena was 19. Father died in a car accident 2 years later. No siblings. No living relatives in the United States that we could find. Taemin felt something twist in his chest. Orphaned. Like him. She spent the last 3 years traveling, Junho continued. Southeast Asia, Europe, now Korea. Funded mostly by her inheritance and some freelance marketing work she does remotely. No criminal record, no outstanding warrants, no connection to any known criminal organizations. Where's she staying? A hostel in Hongdae, cheap place, shared rooms. She's booked there until Friday morning, then she has a flight back to Dallas at noon. Employment? Job interview scheduled for next Monday with a marketing firm in Dallas. Small company. Corporate social media management. She'll probably get the offer based on her portfolio. So Elena had told the truth. She really was just a normal person traveling before settling into a boring corporate job. No hidden agenda. No ulterior motives, just someone who happened to have whatever strange ability or luck or coincidence that made Taemin's legs work when she touched him. There's one more thing, Junho said carefully. Her grandmother, mother's side, lived in Louisiana, died 5 years ago. And? She was known locally as a healer, not medical, the other kind. People came to her with chronic pain, old injuries, spiritual problems. Community considered her legitimate. Taemin went very still. Elena mentioned her grandmother said some people carried luck in their hands. Seems like it might run in the family. It wasn't scientific. It wasn't rational. But Taemin had spent 12 years in medical facilities being told his condition was permanent and irreversible. And then Elena Carter had touched him and made his legs move. Science didn't have an explanation for that. Maybe hereditary healing ability was just as valid as any other theory. I want her protected, Taemin said. Junho raised an eyebrow. Protected from what? From anyone who might realize what she can do. If I figured it out, someone else might. And if the wrong people understand her value. He didn't finish the sentence. Junho understood what happened to valuable things in their world. I'll assign a team, discreet surveillance. She won't know they're there. Good. Junho hesitated. Sir, with respect, getting involved with someone like this could be complicated. She's a civilian. She doesn't understand our world. If things go wrong, things are already wrong. I've been paralyzed for 12 years. Now I'm not. That's as wrong as it gets. You know what I mean. Taemin did. Junho was warning him about attachment, about caring too much about someone who couldn't be easily controlled or protected in the violent political landscape of Seoul's criminal underworld, about the danger of letting someone become important enough that they could be used against him. But it was too late for that warning. Elena was already important. Just keep her safe until Friday, Taemin said. After that, she'll be in Dallas, and it won't matter. Junho left without pointing out the obvious, that if Elena leaving meant Taemin's legs stopped working again, he'd do whatever it took to bring her back. Taemin didn't contact Elena on Thursday. He wanted to. Spent most of the day staring at his phone, typing and deleting messages, trying to figure out what to say that wouldn't sound desperate or insane. Can I see you again? Too casual. I need you to heal me. Too honest. Don't get on that plane. Too controlling. Instead, he went through his normal routine. Business meetings with legitimate front companies. Conference calls with distributors moving product through shipping routes his family had controlled for 3 generations. An evening meeting with a politician who needed reminding about which family had funded his campaign. Normal criminal empire maintenance, except his legs kept twitching under the conference table. And he kept thinking about Elena's smile when she'd called him intense. By Thursday night, he'd convinced himself to let her go. She deserved her normal life in Dallas. The boring job, the clean slate, the distance from people like him who solved problems with violence and measured worth in blood and money. She'd been kind to a stranger in a nightclub. That was all it was. He'd assigned meaning to coincidence because he was desperate for his body to work again. Then Junho called at midnight. We have a problem, Junho said. Taemin was in bed but hadn't been sleeping. What kind of problem? Elena Carter missed her hostel curfew tonight. Hasn't returned. Her roommates say she went out around 8 p.m. to meet someone for drinks. Didn't say who. Now her phone's going straight to voicemail, and the surveillance team lost her in Itaewon. Taemin was out of bed before Junho finished talking. Find her. We're trying. She might have just gone home with someone. One night stand before leaving the country. Could be nothing. Or it could be something. How many people saw what happened at Velvet Underground? A pause. The video's been viewed about 40,000 times. Send me the link. The video appeared on his phone seconds later. Someone had filmed the moment Elena pushed his wheelchair onto the dance floor. The footage was shaky, shot from a bad angle but clear enough. You could see Taemin standing up, see Elena holding him, see the crowd's reaction. The comments were already speculating. Is that really Kang Taemin? Holy shit, he can walk? Who's the girl? Someone said she's American. I need whatever medication he's on. Shut it down, Taemin said. All of it. Every video, every post, every mention. I want this scrubbed. Sir, it's already spread too far. We can suppress most of it, but then suppress what you can and find Elena Carter. Now. He hung up and called his driver. 10 minutes later, he was in the back of his car, heading toward Itaewon while Junho's team coordinated search efforts through his earpiece. Taemin's security detail followed in a second vehicle. They were armed. He hadn't told them to be. They just knew. Because if someone had taken Elena, If someone in Seoul's underworld had seen that video and realized what she was, then this was about to become extremely violent. The car stopped outside a bar called Lucky 7, where the surveillance team had last spotted Elena. Taemin's driver opened his door and he transferred into his wheelchair because his legs weren't reliable enough for hunting through Itaewon's nightlife district on foot. The bar was packed, too loud, too crowded. Taemin's bodyguards cleared a path through the press of drunk foreigners and English teachers and soldiers from the nearby base. Nobody recognized him here. Foreign bars were neutral territory. Different rules. Elena wasn't inside. Taemin checked his phone. Still no response to his texts. She was here until about 10:30, one of his security team reported through the earpiece. Left with 2 men, Korean, mid-30s. We're pulling security footage now to identify them. Were they forcing her? Didn't look like it. She was laughing, seemed consensual. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Taemin's chest tighten with something that felt uncomfortably like jealousy mixed with fear. The security footage came through on his phone. Grainy shot of Elena leaving Lucky 7 with 2 men in business casual clothes. One of them had his hand on her lower back. She was smiling. Junho's voice came through the earpiece. Facial recognition found a match. The taller one is Min Seo-jun, works for the Han family. Everything went cold. The Han family ran half of Gangnam's gambling operations and had been pushing into the Kong family's territory for the last 2 years. They were ambitious, ruthless, and if they'd seen the video from Velvet Underground, they'd understand exactly what Elena represented. Leverage. Where do they operate? Taemin asked quietly. They own a private club in Gangnam. Underground. Invitation only. It's where they take people they want to impress or intimidate. Get me an invitation. Sir, if this turns into a confrontation, then it turns into a confrontation. Get me in. The car turned around and headed back toward Gangnam. Taemin tried Elena's phone again. Voicemail. He texted her. Taemin, where are you? No response. Taemin, Elena, if you're in trouble, tell me where you are. Nothing. The club was called Basement, and it looked exactly like its name suggested. Narrow stairs leading down into darkness. An unmarked door. Security that checked credentials against a list they didn't show to anyone. Taemin's name got him through. Everyone in Seoul's underworld knew who he was, even on enemy territory. Inside was chrome and red leather and music designed to make conversation impossible. Private booths lined the walls. A bar ran the length of the back wall. Dancers on raised platforms moved like they were bored of their own bodies. Taemin scanned the crowd. Found her. Elena was in a corner booth with the 2 men from the security footage. She still looked fine, laughing at something one of them said, drinking something pink in a martini glass. If she was uncomfortable or scared, she was hiding it perfectly. Taemin rolled toward the booth. Elena saw him coming, and her expression shifted from amusement to confusion to something that might have been guilt. She said something to the men. They both turned to look at him. Min Seo-jun smiled. It wasn't friendly. Kang Tae-min, Seo-jun said, loud enough to carry over the music. Didn't expect to see you here. I thought you preferred Velvet Underground these days. Taemin ignored him and looked at Elena. Are you all right? I'm fine? Elena said it like a question. I'm just having drinks. Is there a problem? Yes. What problem? These men work for people who would hurt you to hurt me. Seo-jun laughed. That's dramatic. We're just showing a tourist around Seoul's nightlife, nothing sinister. You saw the video. Everyone saw the video. Your miraculous recovery is very inspiring. And you thought you'd find the woman who caused it. We thought we'd meet an interesting person. Is that a crime? Taemin's hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair. He wanted to stand up, wanted to walk over there and put himself between Elena and these men physically. But his legs weren't working right now, and showing weakness in front of the Han family would be worse than staying seated. Elena, he said carefully, come with me. She looked between him and Seo-jun like she was trying to figure out what was actually happening. Taemin, what's going on? These guys have been nice. They bought me dinner, showed me some cool places. They're using you. For what? To get to me. Elena set down her drink. Her expression hardened. You know what? I'm really tired of men thinking everything I do is about them. Maybe I just wanted to hang out with some people who weren't having a weird crisis about me touching them. That hurt more than it should have. This isn't about ego, Taemin said. This is about your safety. I'm fine. I'm having fun. And you don't own me just because we had coffee once and I helped you stand up at a nightclub. Seojun was smiling wider now, enjoying the conflict. Elena doesn't know who you really are, does she? Seojun said to Taemin. What you do for a living, the people you've killed? She thinks you're just some rich guy in a wheelchair who got lucky. Elena's expression shifted. What's he talking about? Taemin didn't answer. Oh, this is perfect, Seojun continued. You didn't tell her. The infamous Kang Taemin, heir to one of Seoul's oldest crime families, forgot to mention he's a mafia boss. That's adorable. The color drained from Elena's face. Elena? Taemin started. You're a criminal? She interrupted. It's more complicated than, are you a criminal? He could have lied, should have lied. Instead he said, yes. Elena stood up. I need air. She pushed past Taemin's wheelchair and headed for the exit. He started to follow, but Seojun moved to block his path, still smiling. Let me go, Taemin said quietly. Or what? Or what? You'll have your men shoot me in a public club. Seojun leaned against the booth, blocking Taemin's path with his body. That would be messy, bad for business. Your father taught you better than that. Taemin's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage so pure it felt like acid in his veins. Move. She's going to leave Korea tomorrow and forget you exist, Seojun said, voice dripping with amusement. You know that, right? Whatever you think is happening between you two, it's nothing. She's a tourist. You're a cripple who got lucky for 5 minutes. The word hit like a physical blow. Taemin's bodyguard stepped forward, but he raised one hand, stopping them. Violence here would cause problems his family didn't need. The Han family wanted him to lose control, wanted him to start something they could use as justification for retaliation. Tell your boss I'll remember this, Taemin said quietly. I'm sure you will. Seojun stepped aside finally. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Taemin pushed his wheelchair toward the exit, every rotation of the wheels feeling like failure. His security team flanked him as he navigated through the crowd, past dancers and drinkers who didn't know they were watching a mafia boss chase after a woman who'd just learned the truth about what he was. Outside, the Seoul night air hit him like cold water. Elena was halfway down the block, walking fast, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something broken inside. Elena, Taemin called. She didn't stop. Elena, please. She spun around. Even in the dim streetlight, he could see tears on her face, and that was worse than her anger would have been. You're a criminal, she said. Not a question this time. A statement, an accusation. Yes. What kind? The kind that controls shipping routes and construction contracts and political appointments. The kind that solves problems other people can't solve through legal channels. You mean the kind that kills people? Taemin didn't deny it. Elena laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. I thought you were just some rich guy, lonely, maybe damaged, but basically good. I thought. She stopped, wiped her face with the back of her hand. It doesn't matter what I thought. It matters to me. Why? Because I'm useful? Because touching me makes your legs work? Her voice cracked. Is that all I am to you? A walking medical miracle you can exploit? No. Then what? Taemin opened his mouth, closed it. What could he say that wouldn't sound like manipulation? That he'd run a background check on her? That he'd had her followed? That every kind thing he'd done had been calculated to keep her close because his body responded to her touch in ways it hadn't responded to anything else in 12 years? The truth would destroy whatever fragile thing existed between them. The lie would be kinder. I wanted to know you, he said finally. The miracle was secondary. Liar. Elena's eyes were hard now. You texted me at 6 in the morning because you wanted to see if it would happen again. The touching, the healing. You bought me coffee in your private cafe so nobody would see you testing me like a lab experiment. That's not... Did you have me followed? The question hit like a trap he'd walked into blindly. Taemin's silence was answer enough. Oh my God! Elena took a step back. You did. You had me followed. What else? Background check? Financial records? Did you dig through my entire life looking for leverage? I needed to understand what was happening. You needed to control it. Control me. She was shaking now. I'm so stupid. I actually thought you were different. Thought you were just a lonely guy who needed someone to see past the wheelchair. But you're exactly like every other powerful asshole who thinks people are just assets to be managed. Elena, listen to me. No. She held up one hand. I'm done listening. I'm going back to my hostel, I'm packing my stuff, and I'm getting on that plane tomorrow. And you're going to leave me alone. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You just don't want to. If you leave, my legs stop working. The words came out raw and desperate, and Taemin hated how they sounded, but they were true. He could feel it already. The absence of her proximity making his body heavy again, sensation fading from his lower half like water draining from a tub. Elena stared at him. That's not my problem. Please. He'd never begged anyone for anything in his life. Just give me a chance to explain. Explain what? That you're a monster who wanted to use me? I got it. Explanation complete. She turned and started walking again. Taemin pushed his wheelchair after her. Elena, those men tonight, Seojun and his friend, they work for a family that would hurt you to hurt me. Now that they know what you can do, you're not safe in Seoul. Then it's a good thing I'm leaving. They have connections in other countries. If they think you're valuable, stop! Elena whirled around. Stop making this about protecting me when it's really about protecting yourself. You don't care if I'm safe. You care if you lose access to whatever weird thing my touch does to your body. That's not true. Prove it. How? Let me go. Actually, let me go. No following. No surveillance. No sending your people to make sure I get on the plane safely. Just let me walk away and disappear from your life. Taemin's chest felt like it was caving in. I can't. Then we have nothing else to talk about. She walked away. This time, Taemin didn't follow. He sat in his wheelchair in the middle of a Gangnam street while his bodyguards waited at a respectful distance and watched the only person who'd made him feel human in 12 years disappear into the Seoul night. His phone buzzed. Junho. Sir, we need to get you out of here. Han family has people watching. Taemin didn't respond. He was too busy feeling his legs go completely numb again, all the progress from the last 2 days evaporating like it had never existed. His toes stopped tingling. His calves went silent. The warm sensation of blood flow and nerve function faded until he was back to dead weight from the waist down. Back to normal. Back to broken. His driver pulled up alongside him. Taemin transferred into the car without speaking. The wheelchair collapsed and went into the trunk. The vehicle merged into traffic, taking him back to his penthouse, where he'd spend another sleepless night staring at the ceiling and trying to convince himself he'd done the right thing. Except he hadn't. He'd done exactly what Elena accused him of, treated her like an asset instead of a person, and now she was leaving and taking his only chance at recovery with her. Friday morning arrived with rain. Taemin sat at his desk watching water stream down the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office. His laptop displayed shipping manifests for a container coming through Busan that needed his approval. A stack of contracts waited for his signature. His phone kept buzzing with messages from various parts of his empire that required attention. He ignored all of it. At 11 a.m., Junho entered without knocking. She checked out of the hostel an hour ago, Junho reported. Took a taxi to Incheon Airport. Flight boards at noon. Taemin nodded slowly. His hands were flat on the desk, fingers spread wide like he was trying to hold on to something that kept slipping away. Do you want me to stop her? Junho asked. Can I do that? Legally? No. Then no. Junho was quiet for a moment. Sir, there's something else. What? The Han family made contact this morning. They want a meeting. About what? They didn't say. But the timing suggests it's related to Elena Carter. Taemin's jaw clenched. Set it up. When? Today. Now. Before she gets on that plane. Junho made the call while Taemin stood. No, tried to stand. His legs didn't respond. He was back to full paralysis, completely dependent on the wheelchair again, like the last 2 days had been a fever dream. His broken body had hallucinated. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. at a neutral location, a private room in a Gangnam hotel that neither family controlled. 3 hours after Elena's flight departed. Plenty of time for her to be gone before Taemin learned whatever game the Han family was playing. Except the plane was delayed. Taemin learned this from Junho at 1 p.m. when he was already in the car heading to the meeting. Weather delay. Heavy rain over Incheon. Elena's flight wasn't boarding until 1:30 now. Departure pushed to 2 p.m. Should I have someone approach her at the airport? Junho asked. No, let her go. Sir, I said let her go. But something felt wrong. The Han family's sudden interest, the convenient delay, the timing of everything, it all added up to a picture Taemin didn't like. The hotel was expensive and neutral and designed for exactly this kind of meeting. Taemin's security team swept the room first, checking for weapons or recording devices or anything else that might make this a trap. They found nothing. The Han family's representatives arrived 10 minutes late, a power play Taemin ignored because he had bigger concerns than petty status games. 3 people entered the room, 2 men in suits that Taemin recognized as mid-level Han family enforcers, and Yuna Seo. Taemin went very still. Yuna looked exactly like she had 12 years ago when she'd walked away from him in the hospital, elegant, cold, beautiful in the way expensive things were beautiful. She wore a white designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun that made her face look like carved ice. She'd been his fiancée once. Before the shooting, before the paralysis. They'd grown up together, 2 heirs to powerful families whose marriage would have unified territories and strengthened alliances. She'd loved him, or at least he'd thought she did. Then he woke up paralyzed, and she was gone. Hello, Taemin, Yuna said, sitting down across from him like this was a business lunch. You're looking well? What do you want? Straight to business. Some things never change. She folded her hands on the table. I've been in Europe for the last 12 years, London mostly, building connections, expanding my family's interests internationally, very boring corporate work. But recently I've been hearing interesting stories from Seoul. The video. Videos, plural. You standing up, walking, dancing with some random American girl like you're living in a romantic comedy. Yuna smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's quite the miracle. It was temporary. Was it? Because the medical reports Junho sent to Dr. Kang Soo-jin suggest otherwise. Nerve regeneration, muscle recovery, cellular changes that shouldn't be possible. She tilted her head. How did you get those reports, I wonder? Taemin's blood went cold. You have someone inside my organization. I have someone inside everyone's organization. That's how you survive in this business. Yuna pulled out her phone and set it on the table. But we're not here to discuss my intelligence network. We're here to discuss Elena Carter. She swiped through images on her phone. Pictures of Elena leaving the hostel. Elena at the airport. Elena sitting alone at a gate waiting for her delayed flight. Stop watching her, Taemin said quietly. Why? She's fascinating. A nobody from Dallas with no criminal connections and no understanding of what she's stumbled into. But somehow her touch heals spinal injuries. Do you know how valuable that makes her? She's not for sale. Everything's for sale. You taught me that. Yuna leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. The engagement between our families is still technically valid. Your father and mine signed contracts before you were injured. You tried to break it off, but the paperwork was never finalized. Legally, I'm still your fiancé. That's insane. That's politics. And I'm willing to honor it. I'll come back to Seoul, we'll get married like we were always supposed to, and our families will unite their territories. She smiled. In exchange, I'll make sure Elena Carter gets on her plane safely and disappears from your life forever. Taemin stared at her. You're blackmailing me with Elena's safety. I'm offering you a trade. You're miracle worker for your throne. She goes home to her boring life in Dallas. You get to keep running the Kang family empire without interference from mine. Everyone wins. Except Elena, who you're threatening. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply pointing out that Seoul is dangerous for tourists who attract the wrong kind of attention. Accidents happen. People disappear. It would be terrible if something happened to her before she made it home. The room temperature seemed to drop. Taemin's bodyguard shifted slightly, hands moving towards weapons. Yuna's people did the same. Everyone was one word away from violence. If you hurt her, Taman said very quietly. I will burn your family to the ground. No, you won't. Because that would start a war you can't win. Your family is strong, but mine has been building alliances while you've been sitting in that wheelchair feeling sorry for yourself. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. I could kill you right now. You could try, but I'm not stupid enough to come here without insurance. Yuna pulled up another image on her phone. Elena at the airport, this time with a man standing close behind her. Too close. My people are already in position. You make any move against me, they make a move against her. Simple math. Taman wanted to flip the table, wanted to grab Yuna by the throat, and make her understand what happened to people who threatened the things he cared about. But she was right. He was trapped, outnumbered. If he started something here, Elena would pay the price. Why do you even want this? He asked. You left me. You made it very clear 12 years ago that a paralyzed husband wasn't part of your life plan. Things change. My family needs the alliance more now than we did then. European expansion didn't go as planned. We're overextended financially. The Kang family's resources would stabilize our position. Yuna's expression softened slightly. And maybe part of me wants to fix what I broke. I was young, scared. I made a mistake leaving you. You don't love me. Love is irrelevant. We're not children anymore, Taman. This is business. He thought about Elena's laugh, the way she'd looked at him without fear or pity, the feeling of standing for the first time in 12 years while she held his hands. Then he thought about what would happen to her if he refused this deal. You'll guarantee her safety, he said slowly. Personally. Completely. She gets on the plane, flies to Dallas, lives her normal life. My people never contact her again. And if I agree to this marriage, you leave her alone forever. Forever is a long time. But yes. Taman closed his eyes. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse, to fight, to find another way. But there was no other way. Not one that didn't end with Elena hurt or dead or trapped in a world she didn't understand. He'd spent 12 years learning to sacrifice his body for survival. Now he'd sacrifice his future for hers. Fine, Taman said. I'll honor the engagement. Yuna smiled like she had won a war. Excellent. I'll have the contracts drawn up immediately. We can announce the reunion next week. The wedding can happen within the month. One condition. You're not in a position to make conditions. One condition, Taman repeated. You let me say goodbye. Yuna considered this. You have 30 minutes. After that, my people will make sure she boards that plane whether you're finished talking or not. It wasn't enough time. 30 minutes couldn't possibly be enough time to say everything he needed to say. But it was all he had. Taman stood. No, he didn't. His legs were still dead. He'd forgotten again. The wheelchair was his reality now, would be his reality forever probably, once Elena left and took whatever strange healing ability she had with her. I need to go to the airport, he told Junho. Sir, the flight board's in 40 minutes. With traffic, then drive fast. The rain was getting worse. Taemin's driver navigated through Gangnam traffic like he was being chased, weaving between cars and running yellow lights, while Junho coordinated with Yuna's people to make sure Elena stayed at the gate. Taemin tried calling her. Voicemail. He tried texting. No response. The airport appeared through the rain-streaked windows. Incheon International, massive and modern and crowded with thousands of people trying to get somewhere else. Taemin's security team had already coordinated with airport personnel. They had temporary clearance to bypass normal security, go straight through to the international terminal. It still took 20 minutes. By the time Taemin's wheelchair cleared the final checkpoint and rolled into the departure area, he had 15 minutes left. Elena was sitting at gate 24, reading something on her phone. She'd changed clothes, jeans and a hoodie now, travel comfortable, her leather jacket folded beside her carry-on bag. She looked tired, small, like she'd been crying recently but had pulled herself together enough to function. She looked up when Taemin approached. Her expression went from surprise to anger to exhausted resignation in the space of 3 seconds. You couldn't just let me leave, she said. I tried. Taemin stopped his wheelchair a few feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to give her space to run if she wanted. I have 15 minutes, that's all. Then you get on the plane and I never contact you again. Why are you here? To apologize, Elena laughed bitterly. For which part? The lying? The stalking? The having me followed by criminals? All of it. Taemin's hands were shaking. You were right. I treated you like an asset, like something I could control or manage or keep close because it benefited me. That was wrong. You deserved better. Deserved, past tense. You still deserve better, but I can't give it to you. The best I can give you is honesty and a promise that you're safe. Safe from what? From my world. From the people who would use you to hurt me. From me. Elena set down her phone. What happened? I made a deal. You get on this plane, go back to Dallas, live your normal life. And now that in exchange, I make sure nobody from Seoul ever bothers you again. What kind of deal? Taemin hesitated. The kind that means I can't ask you to stay? I wasn't going to stay anyway. I know, but I wanted... He stopped. Started again. I wanted you to know that what happened between us wasn't nothing to me. The dancing, the coffee, the stupid, impossible miracle of my legs working when you touched me, none of it was nothing. Elena's eyes were wet. It felt like something. It was something. Then why does it have to end? Because I'm a criminal and you're not. Because my life is violent and complicated and dangerous, and you deserve boring corporate jobs and normal relationships with people who don't solve their problems with threats and money. Because loving you would mean destroying you, and I care about you too much to do that. The word love hung between them like something physical. Elena wiped her face. You don't love me. You barely know me. I know you're brave enough to grab a stranger's wheelchair. I know you see people instead of their circumstances. I know you made me feel human again when I'd forgotten what that felt like. That's enough. That's not love. That's gratitude. Maybe. I don't know the difference anymore. Taemin reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. He took her hand. I know that touching you makes my legs work. I know that losing you means losing that. And I know I'm choosing to lose you anyway because your safety matters more than my ability to walk. The warmth started immediately, spreading up his arm, down his spine, into his dead legs. Sensation returning like water filling empty spaces. His toes curled. His calves tightened. The familiar pain-pleasure of nerves waking up made him gasp. Elena felt it too. He could see it in her eyes. It's still happening, she whispered. It always happens when you touch me. I don't understand why. Neither do I, but it doesn't matter anymore. What if I stayed? What if I canceled the flight and we figured this out together? Taemin wanted to say yes so badly it physically hurt. Wanted to tell her about Yuna's threats and the engagement and the impossible choice he'd been forced to make. Wanted to believe there was some way they could have both safety and each other. But Yuna's people were watching, and staying meant danger. And Taemin had already sold his future to buy Elena's freedom. You can't stay, he said. It's not safe. Because of your world. Because of me. I make things dangerous just by existing near them. You should go back to Dallas, get that boring job, find someone normal who doesn't come with a body count. I don't want normal. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing boarding for Elena's flight. Elena looked at the desk, then back at Taemin. I need to go. I know. She didn't move. Neither did he. They sat there holding hands while people flowed around them, travelers heading to their gates, families saying goodbye. The normal chaos of an international airport continuing indifferently around two people trying to figure out how to let go. Thank you, Elena said finally, for dancing with me, for being honest eventually, for letting me go. Thank you for seeing me. She leaned forward and kissed him, quick, soft, tasting like salt and regret and all the things they'd never get to be to each other. Then she pulled away, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the gate. Taemin watched her hand over her boarding pass, watched her disappear down the jetway, watched the door close behind her. The warmth in his legs faded immediately. Sensation drained away. His toes went numb. His calves went silent. Within 60 seconds, he was back to complete paralysis, just dead weight in an expensive wheelchair, exactly like he'd been for 12 years before Elena Carter crashed into his life. His phone buzzed. Yuna. She's on the plane. Congratulations on making the smart choice. I'll send the wedding details tomorrow. Taemin stared at the message. Then he threw his phone across the terminal. It shattered against a pillar. People stared. Security started moving toward him. Junho appeared from somewhere and handled it quietly, probably flashing credentials or money or threats. Taemin didn't care. He was too busy feeling everything he'd just lost settling into his chest like concrete. Sir, Junho said carefully, we should go. Did I do the right thing? I don't know. She's gone. Yes. And I'm getting married to someone I don't love to protect someone I'll never see again. Yes, Taemin laughed. It sounded like choking. Take me home. The drive back to Seoul was silent. Rain hammered the car windows. Taemin stared at nothing and tried not to think about Elena's face when she'd kissed him goodbye. His penthouse felt emptier than usual when he arrived. The view of Seoul's skyline looked gray and washed out through the rain. Everything looked gray. Everything felt gray. Taemin transferred from his wheelchair to the couch and sat there, trying to convince himself he'd made the right choice. He was still sitting there 3 hours later when Junho called. Sir, we have a problem. What now? Elena Carter's plane. It never took off. Taemin went cold. What? The flight was delayed again. Mechanical issue. They're saying it won't depart until tomorrow morning at the earliest. All passengers have been moved to airport hotels. Where's Elena? I don't know. The Han family was supposed to be tracking her, but they pulled their surveillance the moment she boarded. Now she's somewhere in Incheon, and we have no visual. Find her. I'm trying, but, find her now. Taemin was already moving, transferring back into his wheelchair, heading for the door. His driver appeared like magic because the security team always knew when Taemin was about to do something reckless. The drive back to Incheon took 45 minutes. Taemin spent every second of it calling Elena's phone. Voicemail. 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 Sir, Junho said through the phone, even if we find her, what's the plan? You already made the deal with Yuna. If you try to keep Elena here, then I'll deal with the consequences. That could mean war. I don't care. He cared. He cared about his family's empire and the people who worked for him and the fragile political balance that kept Seoul's underworld from tearing itself apart. But he cared about Elena more, and that was either the bravest or stupidest thing he'd ever admitted to himself. The airport hotels were clustered near the terminal. 5 major properties. Taemin's team split up and started checking registration records, flashing money and credentials and whatever else it took to get cooperation from desk clerks. Nothing. Elena wasn't registered at any of them under her own name. She might have used cash, Junho suggested. Fake name. She's smart enough to know people are looking for her. Why would she hide? Maybe she figured out the deal you made. Maybe she's scared, or maybe... Junho's phone rang. He answered, listened, went pale. What? Taemin demanded. That was one of our contacts at the airport. Someone just found Elena Carter's passport and phone in a trash can near the international terminal bathrooms. The world tilted. She ran, Taemin said, or someone took her. Who? I don't know. But if the Han family lied about pulling surveillance, Taemin's other phone rang, the secure line, the one only certain people knew about. He answered. Yuna's voice came through, and she sounded furious. What did you do? What are you talking about? Elena Carter. She's gone. My people were supposed to watch her get on the plane, but she never showed up for the rescheduled flight. Now her passport's been found in the trash and she's disappeared. You said you pulled your surveillance. I lied. Of course I lied. I needed to make sure she actually left. But she's not at any of the hotels and her credit cards haven't been used and it's like she vanished into thin air. Taemin's mind was racing. You think someone else took her? I think someone who knew about our deal decided to complicate things. The Jeong family has been watching your organization for weeks. If they found out about Elena's abilities, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The Jeong family ran Seoul's medical supply chain and pharmaceutical distribution. If they'd learned about a woman who could heal spinal injuries with a touch, they'd see exactly what Taemin had seen: value, power, control, and they'd take her. Find her, Taemin said into the phone. Whatever resources you need, use them. Find her before the Jongs do something we can't undo. We? Yuna laughed coldly. This isn't my problem anymore. She ran. The deal's off. You want her back? You find her yourself. Yuna! The line went dead. Taemin sat in his wheelchair in the middle of an airport hotel lobby, while Rain continued to hammer Seoul and tried to figure out how everything had gone so catastrophically wrong so quickly. Elena was gone. The deal with Yuna was broken, and somewhere in this city, the woman who'd made him feel human again was either hiding or captured or worse. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Unknown. If you want Elena Carter back alive, come to the old warehouse district in Incheon. Pier 7. Alone. You have 2 hours. Junho read the message over his shoulder. It's a trap. Obviously. You can't go alone. I'm not going to. Sir, get every available person we have, full combat gear. I want that pier surrounded before I arrive. Taemin looked at Junho. And find out who sent this message. I want to know exactly who I'm killing tonight. For the first time in 12 years, Taemin felt something other than numbness or controlled rage. He felt murderous. And whoever had taken Elena was about to learn what happened when you hurt the only thing a monster had left to lose. The warehouse district in Incheon looked like the kind of place where cities sent their industrial corpses to rot. Abandoned shipping containers stacked 3 high, cracked concrete stretching toward black water, rusted cranes frozen mid-reach like dead metal giants. Pier 7 sat at the far end, a skeletal structure jutting into the bay where cargo ships used to dock before the port expanded south and left this whole area to decay. Perfect place for an ambush. Taemin's convoy stopped 2 blocks away. 3 black SUVs carrying 12 armed men, all of them veterans from conflicts most people didn't know the Kang family had been involved in. Junho was in the lead vehicle coordinating positions through encrypted comms. They had snipers on 2 adjacent buildings, drones overhead with thermal imaging, escape routes mapped, medical team on standby. But Taemin was still going in alone. This is suicide, Junho said for the 3rd time. Then it's suicide. Taemin checked the gun holstered under his jacket. Glock 19. 15 rounds. He'd trained with firearms after the shooting, learned to aim from a seated position, compensated for the lack of stable footing. He was a decent shot. Not great. Good enough. At least wear body armor. They'll search me. Armor makes me look scared. You should be scared. I am. Taemin met Junho's eyes. But Elena's in there. Scared doesn't matter. Junho was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out a small device, clipped it to Taemin's collar. Microphone. We'll hear everything. If it goes bad, we come in shooting. If it goes bad, Elena dies before you reach her. So don't come in shooting unless I give the signal. What's the signal? You'll know it when you hear it. Taemin rolled his wheelchair toward Pier 7. Rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet, reflecting distant city lights and puddles that looked like holes in the earth. His wheels made soft sounds against concrete. The bay smelled like salt and oil and dead fish. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn echoed across the water. The pier entrance was open, no guards visible. That meant they were inside waiting, which meant they wanted him deeper in the structure before springing whatever trap they'd prepared. Taemin kept rolling forward. The pier's interior was vast and empty. Support columns every 20 feet, metal catwalks overhead, broken windows letting in ambient light from the city. His wheelchair's movement echoed in the cavernous space, announcing his presence to anyone listening. Kang Tae-min, a voice called from somewhere ahead. Male. Korean accent. Not anyone Taemin recognized. You came alone like we asked. How obedient. Where is she? Closer than you think. Lights flickered on, industrial floods mounted on tripods pointing toward the center of the space. Taemin shielded his eyes against the glare, trying to see past them. Movement in the shadows. Multiple people. He counted at least 6 figures, but there could be more. Then the lights shifted and he saw Elena. She was tied to a metal chair 20 feet away, duct tape over her mouth. Her clothes were torn and dirty, like she'd fought. Blood on her lip. Her eyes went wide when she saw him, shaking her head frantically like she was trying to tell him to run. Taemin's hands tightened on his wheelchair. Let her go, he said quietly. Eventually. The voice resolved into a person. Man in his 40s, expensive suit that looked wrong in the industrial setting, face Taemin didn't recognize, but the family resemblance was there. Jong bloodline, probably a cousin to the main branch. First we talk business. I don't negotiate with kidnappers. You negotiated with Yuna Seo. So they knew about that. Of course they knew. Everyone in Seoul's underworld traded information like currency. That was different, Taemin said. Was it? She threatened your miracle worker. You agreed to marry her. We threaten your miracle worker. You'll agree to give us what we want. Simple formula. What do you want? The Jong representative smiled. Access. 3 hours a week with Elena Carter. We have clients, very wealthy clients, who would pay extraordinary amounts for healing sessions, old injuries, chronic pain, degenerative conditions. Your little girlfriend here could revolutionize private medicine. She's not a product. Everything's a product. You should know that better than anyone. He walked closer to Elena, ran his hand over her hair. She flinched away. We'll treat her well. Good accommodations, protection, fair compensation for her time. She leaves Korea tomorrow. Not anymore, she doesn't. Her passport's been destroyed. Her visa's been flagged as expired in our system. She's technically here illegally now. We can make that problem disappear if you cooperate. Or we can hand her to immigration and let them deport her to a country that doesn't exist in any database. Your choice. Taemin felt ice in his veins. You can't fake a deportation. We own 3 officials in the immigration department. We can fake anything. Elena was crying behind the tape. Not scared crying. Furious crying. The kind that came from being treated like an object while people discussed your future like you weren't even there. Taemin looked at her. Their eyes met. He tried to communicate everything he couldn't say out loud, that he had people outside, that this wasn't over, that he'd burn this entire pier to the ground before letting them take her. She blinked once. Understanding. Or maybe hope. He wasn't sure which. I need to think about it, Taemin said. No, you don't. You need to agree or watch her disappear. Then I need to talk to her first. Alone. The Jong representative laughed. You think I'm stupid? I think you want me cooperative instead of hostile. Give me 5 minutes with her. I'll convince her this is the right choice. She trusts me. That was a lie. Elena didn't trust him anymore. But the Jong family didn't know that. The representative considered this, nodded to his people. 2 of them grabbed Elena's chair and dragged it closer to Taemin, stopping just outside arm's reach. Close enough to talk, too far to touch. 5 minutes, the representative said. We'll be right over there. Try anything stupid, and she dies first. They moved back into the shadows. Still visible, still watching, but giving the illusion of privacy. Taemin rolled his wheelchair forward until he was directly in front of Elena. Someone pulled the tape off her mouth roughly. She gasped. Are you hurt? Taemin asked quietly. What do you think? Her voice was raw. They grabbed me at the airport, threw me in a van, kept me in some basement for hours asking questions about how the healing works. I told them I don't know, and they didn't believe me. Did they? They didn't rape me if that's what you're asking. Just scared me, hit me a few times, tied me up and brought me here. She was shaking. This is your world. This is what you do to people. Not me. Never me. But your people, your family, you're all the same. Elena, why did you come? She was crying harder now. You should have let them have me. Should have let me disappear. Now they're going to use me against you forever, and you're going to agree because you're a good person trapped in a monster's body, and that's worse than just being a monster because at least monsters don't care. Taemin reached out slowly, took her bound hands in his. The warmth hit immediately, stronger than before, painful this time, like electrical current instead of heated water. His spine arched, his legs spasmed. Sensation flooded back so fast it felt like drowning. His toes curled violently inside his shoes. His calves cramped. His thighs trembled with muscle memory. Elena felt it too. Her eyes went wide. What's happening? She whispered. Same thing that always happens when you touch me. Taemin gripped her hands tighter. The pain was excruciating. Every nerve ending in his lower body was screaming, but beneath the pain was movement, real movement. His right foot pressed flat against the wheelchair footrest. His left knee bent slightly. His body was remembering. Can you stand? Elena asked. I don't know. Try. If I fall, then I'll catch you. Try. Taman took a breath. This was insane. He hadn't walked without support since the night at Velvet Underground. His legs weren't strong enough. His balance was gone. His muscle mass had atrophied despite years of passive therapy. Standing up here now, surrounded by armed enemies in a kidnapping scenario, was suicide. He pushed himself up anyway. His legs held. Barely. Shaking violently, his knees wanted to buckle immediately, but they held. Taman stood in front of Elena's chair, swaying like a drunk man, gripping her bound hands like they were the only things keeping him from falling into space. "Holy shit!" Elena breathed. "Don't let go." "I won't." Behind them, someone shouted. The Zhang family's people had noticed. Footsteps approached rapidly. Taman heard weapons being drawn, the metallic click of safeties being released. "Sit down," the representative ordered. Taman ignored him. He was too focused on staying upright, on feeling his feet against concrete, on the impossible sensation of supporting his own weight after 12 years of wheelchair dependence. "I said sit down." "No." Taman's voice came out strained. "Here's the counteroffer. You let Elena go, right now. Untie her, give her money for a hotel, and guarantee her safe passage to the airport tomorrow. In exchange, I don't kill everyone in this building." The representative laughed. "You can barely stand. You think you're threatening me?" "I think I have 12 armed men outside waiting for my signal. I think you're outnumbered, and I think if you hurt her, I'll make what happened to Lee Minho look merciful." The laughter stopped. Everyone in Seoul's underworld knew what happened to Lee Minho. They'd found pieces of him scattered across 4 districts. It had taken forensics 3 weeks to confirm his identity. It had taken Taman 3 hours to give the orders that made it happen. "You're bluffing," the representative said, but his voice was less certain now. "Am I?" Taman's legs were screaming. He couldn't hold this position much longer. "Let her go and find out if I'm bluffing." A long silence, then gunshots. Not from inside the pier, from outside. The distinctive crack of rifle fire followed by the heavier boom of return fire from automatic weapons. Shouting. More shots. The sound of war erupting in the industrial district. "What did you do?" the representative screamed. "Brought my army!" Taman's vision was starting to blur from pain and exhaustion. "Junho, now!" The pier's side entrance exploded inward, literally exploded. Someone had used breaching charges. Junho's team poured through the opening in tactical formation, weapons up, moving like they'd trained for exactly this scenario, which they had. The Kang family didn't stay powerful by being unprepared. The Zhang family's people scattered. Some tried to fight. Bad choice. Junho's team had been doing this longer, trained harder, killed more efficiently. 3 of the Zhang soldiers went down in the first 10 seconds. The others surrendered or ran, but the representative grabbed a gun from somewhere and pointed it at Elena's head. "Stay back," he screamed. "I'll kill her." Everything froze. Yunho's team had clear shots but couldn't take them without risking Elena. The representative's hand was shaking. Amateur. Scared. That made him more dangerous, not less. Scared people did stupid things. Taman was still standing, still holding Elena's bound hands. His legs were giving out. He couldn't feel anything below his waist anymore except pain. The warmth from Elena's touch was fading as his body exhausted whatever strange reserve of strength it had been drawing on. "Let her go," Taman said quietly. "You brought an army. You broke the rules." "There are no rules, only consequences." "Then here's a consequence." The representative's finger tightened on the trigger. Taman moved without thinking. He threw himself sideways, putting his body between Elena and the gun. His legs collapsed immediately. He fell hard, hitting the concrete floor with enough force to crack ribs. Pain exploded through his chest. Couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't... The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Then silence. Taman lay on the cold concrete trying to figure out if he'd been shot. Couldn't tell. Everything hurt. His chest, his legs, his spine, everything. He couldn't feel specific injuries because the general pain was overwhelming. Elena was screaming his name. No, not screaming, crying, saying his name over and over like a prayer or a curse or both. Someone cut her ropes. She fell forward onto the concrete beside him, hands immediately going to his chest checking for wounds. "You're not shot," she said. "Oh God, you're not shot." "The representative?" "Junho shot him. He's dead." "Taemin, you're not shot, but you're not moving your legs." "Can't feel them." "At all?" "Nothing. Same as before. Like they're not there." Elena's hands found his. The warmth tried to start again, but it was weak this time, barely a tingle. His body was done. Whatever miracle had let him stand for those few minutes was exhausted. He was back to being paralyzed, back to broken. But Elena was alive. That was worth it. Junho appeared beside them, checking Taemin for injuries with professional efficiency. "Sir, we need to move you. More Jong family forces could be coming." "Elena first." "She's fine. You cracked 3 ribs and possibly punctured a lung. Medical team is bringing a stretcher." "I said Elena first." Taemin gripped Junho's arm. "Get her to a hotel, safe house, somewhere they can't find her. Then get her on a plane tomorrow, no matter what it takes. Bribe whoever you need to bribe. Forge whatever documents need forging. Get her out of Korea." "Taemin," Elena started. "You're leaving," he told her. "This time you're actually leaving, and I'm not going to stop you. But no." His voice was firm despite the pain. "This is my world. You saw what it looks like. This is what happens to people I care about. They get kidnapped, threatened, used as weapons against me. You deserve better than this. Better than me." "I don't want better. I want—" "What you want doesn't matter." The words came out harsher than he intended. "You're a civilian. You don't belong here. And I won't let you become another casualty of my family's business." Elena was crying. "You almost died for me." "I know. You stood up. You walked. You put yourself between me and a gun." "I know. Doesn't that mean something?" "It means I care about you enough to let you go." Medical team arrived with a stretcher. They lifted Taemin carefully, strapped him down, started an IV. He was still holding Elena's hand, didn't remember grabbing it, didn't want to let go. But he had to. "Junho," he said quietly, "take care of her." "Yes, sir." "Elena." Taemin looked at her one last time. Her face was dirty and tear-streaked and beautiful. "Thank you for the dance." Then they wheeled him toward the exit and out of her life. The hospital was private, expensive, the kind of place where gunshot victims and criminal injuries were treated without reporting to authorities because the Kang family owned enough stock in the parent company to ensure discretion. Taemin's ribs were cracked, but not punctured. Lucky. The fall had been worse than the almost shooting. They wrapped his chest, gave him painkillers, ran tests on his spine to see if throwing himself across a concrete floor had caused additional damage. It hadn't. His paralysis was the same as always. Complete loss of sensation and motor function below T12. The brief period of standing and walking had left no trace in his body, like it never happened. Like Elena's touch had granted temporary magic that evaporated the moment the crisis ended. Dr. Kang Soo-jin stood beside his hospital bed, looking exhausted. "You need to stop doing this," she said. "Doing what?" "Getting injured trying to save people. You're not a superhero. You're a paralyzed crime lord with 3 cracked ribs and a death wish." "Is Elena safe?" "According to Junho, yes. She's at a safe house in Gangnam. Plane tickets been rebooked for tomorrow afternoon. New passports being expedited through our contacts in the American embassy. She'll be out of Korea by this time tomorrow." "Good. You're not going to see her again." It wasn't a question. Soo-jin knew him too well. "No," Taemin said. "I'm not." "Because you love her?" "Because loving her means letting her have a normal life. Something I can't give her." Soo-jin was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake. That woman made you stand up, made you walk. That's not nothing. It's everything, which is exactly why she needs to leave." Taemin closed his eyes. "When's Yuna coming?" "How do you know she's coming?" "Because our deal is broken. Her people failed to keep Elena safe. That means the engagement is off, and she'll want to renegotiate terms." "Actually," a voice said from the doorway, "the engagement is very much on." Yuna walked into the hospital room like she owned it. Probably did, through some shell company. She wore white again, completely inappropriate for a hospital visit, looking like she was attending a wedding instead of discussing one. "You failed," Taemin said. "The Jong family failed. I didn't promise to control every criminal organization in Seoul. I promised Elena would be safe if you married me. She's safe now. So the deal stands. She's safe because I rescued her. With my intelligence. My people identified the Jong family's involvement. My resources helped Junho coordinate the assault. You couldn't have saved her without me. Yuna sat in the chair beside his bed. So here's the new arrangement. You marry me as planned. Elena Carter leaves Korea tomorrow and never comes back. And in exchange, I personally guarantee no one in Seoul's underworld ever touches her again. I don't trust your guarantees. You don't have to. You just have to acknowledge that you don't have better options. Yuna leaned forward. Your family needs the alliance. Mine needs the resources. And you need to know that the woman who healed you won't spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder because every crime family in Asia wants to kidnap her. I could kill you right now. You could. But my family would retaliate against yours. Lots of people would die, including potentially Elena if they decided to use her as leverage. Is that what you want? No, it wasn't. Taemin wanted Elena safe in Dallas living her boring corporate life, completely forgotten by Seoul's underworld. If marrying Yuna guaranteed that, then it was a trade he'd make. Again, when, he asked. The wedding? 3 weeks. That gives you time to heal. Gives me time to arrange everything. Public ceremony, all the major families invited. We'll make it the event of the year. I won't love you. I don't need you to love me. I need you to stand beside me at the altar and sign the contracts that unite our families. Everything else is negotiable. Can I walk? At the wedding? Probably not. Your legs don't work without Elena Carter's touch, and she'll be in Dallas. You'll be in your wheelchair. We'll work it into the aesthetic. Tragic romance, the paralyzed heir finding love again after years of isolation. Very moving. Taemin wanted to strangle her, wanted to wheel himself out of this hospital and disappear somewhere. Yuna and her family and his own family couldn't find him. Wanted to get on a plane to Dallas and tell Elena the truth, that he'd do anything to keep her safe, even marry someone else, even sacrifice his own happiness, even live the rest of his life in a wheelchair knowing she was the only person who could make him walk again. But he didn't do any of those things. He just lay there and felt the trap close around him one more time. 3 weeks, he said quietly. 3 weeks, Yuna confirmed. She stood, smoothed her white suit, headed for the door. Oh, and Taemin, don't try to contact Elena. Don't send messages through intermediaries. Don't have Junho check on her. Let her go completely. If you really love her, give her the one thing you couldn't give her while she was here, freedom from you. She left. Dr. Sujin looked at Taemin with something like pity. You're really going through with this. Do I have a choice? Everyone has choices. Yours just all happened to be terrible. She left too. Taemin lay alone in the hospital room listening to machines beep and trying to convince himself this was the right thing. Elena would go home, get her job, live her normal life, eventually forget about the mafia boss who'd danced with her once and almost gotten her killed twice. That was better than the alternative. That was the only thing that mattered. His phone buzzed on the bedside table. Junho had brought it from the warehouse. Somehow it had survived the chaos intact. One new message. Elena, I'm not leaving. Taemin stared at the screen. Taemin, yes you are. Elena, no, I'm not. I'm staying in Seoul. I'm staying with you. And you can't stop me. Taemin, Elena, you have to go. It's not safe. Elena, I don't care. Taemin, I care. I'm trying to protect you. Elena, by pushing me away, by forcing me to leave? That's not protection. That's control. Taemin, it's survival. Mine and yours. Elena, bullshit. You're scared. You're scared that if I stay, you'll have to admit you care about me, that you'll have to let someone in, that you'll have to be vulnerable. She was right. She was absolutely right, and Taemin hated it. Taemin, I'm getting married in 3 weeks. The response took a long time. Elena, what? Taemin, to Yuna Seo, the woman from 12 years ago. The engagement's been reinstated. The wedding's in 3 weeks. Elena, why? Taemin, because that's the price of keeping you safe. She guarantees no one in Seoul's underworld touches you. I guarantee our families unite and stop fighting. Everyone wins. Elena. Except you. Taemin. I stopped mattering a long time ago. Elena. That's the saddest thing you've ever said. Taemin. It's the truth. Go home, Elena. Please, let me do this one good thing for you. The dots appeared and disappeared 3 times. Elena was typing, deleting, typing again. Finally. Elena. If you marry her, I'll never forgive you. Taemin. I can live with that. Elena. Can you? He didn't answer, couldn't answer, because the truth was he didn't know if he could live with it. Didn't know if he could stand at an altar in 3 weeks and marry someone he didn't love, while the woman who made his legs work was halfway across the world hating him. But he'd do it anyway, because protecting Elena mattered more than his own happiness. Because some loves required distance instead of closeness. Because Kang Taemin had spent 12 years learning that sacrifice was just another word for survival. His phone buzzed one more time. Elena, I'll be at the airport tomorrow, gate 24 again. Same flight. If you change your mind, come find me. If you don't, I'll know you've already made your choice. Then nothing. Taemin lay in his hospital bed staring at the message. Tomorrow. Gate 24. One last chance to choose differently. One last chance to be selfish instead of sacrificial. One last chance to grab what he wanted instead of what was right. Outside his window, Seoul's lights glittered in the darkness. The city moved forward like it always did, indifferent to the choices one paralyzed crime lord made in a private hospital room. The world didn't care about his pain or his love or his impossible decision. The world just kept turning. And Taemin had 24 hours to figure out if he was brave enough to stop it. 24 hours felt like 24 years. Taemin spent them in the hospital bed, not sleeping, not eating, just staring at his phone and Elena's last message until the words burned themselves into his memory. Gate 24. Same flight. One last chance. Dr. Sujin discharged him at noon against her better judgment. 3 cracked ribs weren't enough to keep him hospitalized if he insisted on leaving, and Taemin insisted. He had his driver take him back to the penthouse where Junho was waiting with reports about cleanup from the Pier 7 incident. 4 Jong family members dead, 7 arrested, the rest scattered. Their organization would need months to recover. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. What time does her flight leave? Taemin asked. Junho checked his tablet. 2 p.m. Boards at 1:30. She's already at the airport. Been there since 10 this morning. Alone? With a security detail I assigned. Discreet. She doesn't know they're there. Taemin looked at the clock. 1 p.m. 30 minutes until boarding, an hour until takeoff. After that, Elena would be gone and this entire impossible chapter of his life would close. Sir, Junho said carefully, Yoona Seo called twice this morning. She wants to finalize wedding arrangements. Tell her I'll call back. She's insistent. The invitations need to go out this week. The venue needs confirmation. The media's already asking questions about why you haven't made a public appearance since the engagement announcement. I don't care about any of that. You should. This wedding is political theater. If you don't play your part, there are consequences. Taemin wheeled himself to the window overlooking Seoul. The city sprawled beneath him, millions of people living their normal lives completely unaware that a paralyzed crime lord was having an emotional crisis 40 floors above them. What would you do? He asked. If you were me. Junho was quiet for a long moment. I'd ask myself which choice I could live with. Not which one was right or smart or politically advantageous, just which one wouldn't destroy me from the inside out. And if both choices destroy me, then at least pick the one that feels like dying for something instead of dying for nothing. Taemin closed his eyes. Dying for something. Elena had made him feel alive again, had made his legs work when nothing else could, had seen him as a person instead of a monster, or a wheelchair, or a broken thing that needed fixing. Losing her felt like losing the only part of himself that still remembered how to be human. But marrying Yoona guaranteed her safety, guaranteed she could live her normal life without Seoul's underworld hunting her. That was worth sacrificing his own happiness. That had to be worth it. His phone buzzed. Unknown. This is Elena. I'm using a burner phone because I assume you're tracking my real one. I need you to understand something before I get on this plane. Whatever deal you made with Yoona Seo, it doesn't protect me. It protects you. You're hiding behind marriage and family politics because you're too scared to admit what you actually want. And what you want is me. So stop being a coward and come to the airport, or don't, but at least be honest about why. The message hit like a physical blow. Taemin read it 3 times. Then he looked at Junho. Get the car, he said. Sir, if you go to the airport, I said get the car. Junho made the call. 5 minutes later, Taemin was in the back of his SUV heading toward Incheon, while his ribs screamed with every breath and his dead legs sat uselessly beneath him. The drive took 40 minutes. Traffic was terrible. Construction on the highway, accident near the airport exit. Every delay felt like the universe conspiring to keep him away from Gate 24. They arrived at 1:45. 15 minutes after boarding started. Taemin's security team had already coordinated with airport personnel. They bypassed normal security, went straight through to international departures. The terminal was crowded with travelers, families saying goodbye, business people checking phones while waiting for delays. Gate 24 was at the far end. Taemin pushed his wheelchair faster than was safe, nearly running over a child who darted into his path. Junho cleared people out of the way. They reached the gate at 1:52. The boarding door was still open. Elena wasn't in the waiting area. She already boarded, the gate agent said when Junho asked. 5 minutes ago. Flight's about to push back. I need to speak with her, Taemin said. Sir, you can't board without a ticket. Then sell me a ticket. The flight's full. And even if it wasn't, you'd need to go through security. Taemin pulled out his phone and made a call. 3 minutes later, the gate agent's supervisor appeared, looking nervous and apologetic. Money and power had their uses. The supervisor escorted Taemin down the jetway to the plane's entrance, where a flight attendant was doing final checks. I need to speak with Elena Carter, Taemin said. It's urgent. The flight attendant looked confused. We can't delay departure for personal conversations. I'm not asking you to delay, I just need 60 seconds. Sir, please. The word came out raw, desperate. Taemin wasn't above begging. Please, just let me talk to her. Something in his face must have convinced her. The flight attendant disappeared into the cabin. Returned a minute later with Elena following behind, looking shocked and angry and hopeful all at once. You came, Elena said. I almost didn't. Why did you? Because you're right. I'm a coward. I've been hiding behind politics and family obligations and the convenient excuse that keeping you safe meant pushing you away. But the truth is, I'm just scared. Of what? Of loving you, of needing you, of building my entire recovery around your touch, and then losing you anyway, because that's what happens to things I care about. They get destroyed. Elena stepped closer. The jetway was narrow, barely room for both of them and Taemin's wheelchair. She knelt down so they were eye level. I'm not a thing, she said quietly. I'm a person. And people don't get destroyed by being loved. They get destroyed by being pushed away by someone who claims to love them but won't fight for them. I'm fighting for you right now. Are you? Because it looks like you're trying to have one last conversation before I leave and you marry someone else. The wedding is bullshit. You know it's bullshit. Eunicio doesn't love you. You don't love her. You're trading your life for my safety, except I never asked you to do that. I never asked you to sacrifice yourself. I asked you to be brave enough to let me stay. Staying means danger. Living means danger. I could get hit by a car in Dallas, get cancer, have a plane crash. There's no such thing as safe. There's just whether you die alone or with someone who makes you feel human. The flight attendant cleared her throat. We really need to close the door. Elena ignored her. I'm getting off this plane. You can't stop me. Yes, I can. I can have security escort you back to your seat. Then do it. Have your people physically carry me onto this plane and watch it take off. And spend the rest of your life knowing you chose fear over love. Taemin's chest hurt. His ribs, his heart, everything. If you stay, Yuna's family will retaliate. They'll see it as breaking our agreement. That means war. So go to war. People will die. People are always dying in your world. At least let some of them die for something that matters. The pilot's voice came over the intercom announcing final boarding. The flight attendant looked panicked now. I'm closing the door in 30 seconds, whether you're on the plane or not. Elena stood up, grabbed her carry-on bag from where she'd dropped it, turned back to Taemin. Last chance, she said. Tell me to stay or tell me to go. But make it real this time. No politics, no strategy. Just what you actually want. Taemin looked at her. Really looked at her. Messy hair, tired eyes. Wearing the same Nirvana shirt from their coffee date like she'd run out of clean clothes and stopped caring. She'd been kidnapped, threatened, traumatized by his world, and she was still here, still choosing him, still believing he was worth the risk. Stay, he said. What about Yuna? I'll handle Yuna. What about your family, the alliance, the political fallout? I'll handle all of it, just stay. Elena smiled, that same fearless smile from Velvet Underground when she'd grabbed his wheelchair and demanded he dance. Okay? Okay? Okay, I'll stay. She stepped off the plane. The flight attendant immediately closed the door behind her, muttering about schedules and regulations. Elena dropped her bag and knelt in front of Taemin's wheelchair again. Now what? She asked. Now I break an engagement, start a potential gang war, and figure out how to explain to my entire organization that I'm choosing a reckless American tourist over decades of family alliance. Sounds terrible. It does. Worth it? Taemin took her hands. The warmth started immediately, flooding through his arms and down his spine and into his dead legs. His toes curled, his calves tightened. The familiar pain-pleasure of nerves waking up made him gasp. Yes, he said. It's worth it. Breaking the engagement with Yuna required a meeting. Taemin arranged it for that evening at the same neutral hotel where they'd finalized the wedding plans. Yuna arrived wearing black this time, mourning clothes, like she already knew what was coming. You went to the airport, she said, sitting across from him. Yes. And Elena Carter is still in Seoul. Yes. So you're breaking our agreement. I'm breaking our engagement. The agreement was conditional on me marrying you. I'm not doing that, so the terms are void. Yuna's expression didn't change. You realize this means war. I realize it means potential conflict. Whether it becomes war depends on how reasonable both our families choose to be. There's nothing reasonable about what you're doing. You're choosing a woman you barely know over an alliance that would stabilize both our territories. I'm choosing to not spend the rest of my life married to someone I don't love, while the woman who makes me feel human lives halfway across the world, hating me. That's selfish. Yes, it is. I'm being selfish for the first time in 12 years, and it feels incredible. Yuna was quiet for a moment, then she laughed. Not amused laughter, bitter laughter. The kind that came from recognizing you'd lost before the fight even started. I could make this very difficult for you, she said. My family has resources, connections. We could target your shipping routes, your political contacts, your legitimate business fronts. You could, and I could retaliate. And we'd both lose people and money and territory until eventually someone brokered a peace agreement that left everyone worse off than when we started. Then why do this at all? Because Elena's touch makes my legs work. Because for 5 minutes at that warehouse I stood up and walked and felt alive in a way I haven't felt since before the shooting. And because I'm tired of letting fear make all my decisions. Yuna studied him carefully. You're different. The Taemin I knew 12 years ago would never have chosen personal happiness over family politics. The Taemin you knew 12 years ago could walk. This version has learned that nothing's permanent. Not paralysis, not power, not even fear. The only thing that matters is what you choose to fight for when you still have the choice. She stood up, smoothed her black dress. I'll speak with my family. We'll discuss options that don't involve open war. But Taemin, this costs you. The alliance is broken. That means my family is no longer bound by any previous agreements. We're competitors now. I understand. And Elena Carter? If she stays in Seoul, she's fair game for anyone who wants leverage against you. No, she's not. You can't protect her from everyone. Watch me. Yuna smiled sadly. You really love her. I really do. Then I hope she's worth what this is going to cost you. She left. Taemin sat alone in the hotel conference room and felt the weight of what he'd just done settle over him like lead. Yuna was right. This would cost him. The broken alliance meant political instability. Other families would see weakness and push into Kang territory. He'd spend the next year defending what his family had built, probably losing ground in some areas, fighting battles that could have been avoided with a simple wedding. But Elena would be here. That made the price worth paying. His phone rang. Junho. Sir, Yuna's family just pulled their security detail from 3 of our joint operations. They're making good on the threat. This is happening fast. How fast? Fast enough that we need to consolidate resources, pull back from secondary territories, focus on protecting core assets. Do it. And Junho, put Elena under full protection, 24-hour security, best people we have. Already arranged. She's at your penthouse now. Didn't ask permission, just showed up and told your building security she was staying. Taemin smiled despite everything. That sounds like her. Sir, are you sure about this? There's still time to fix things with Yuna. The wedding could happen. The alliance could hold. I'm sure. Even if it means war? Even then, Yunho was quiet for a beat. For what it's worth, I'm glad you chose her. You've been dead inside since the shooting. Elena brought you back to life. That matters. Thank you, Junho. Don't thank me yet. We've got about 3 different family organizations that are going to test our defenses in the next week. It's going to get ugly. Let them test. We've survived worse. He hung up and headed home. Opa. Elena was in his penthouse living room when Taemin arrived, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows watching Seoul's night skyline like she was trying to memorize it. She'd showered, her hair was damp, and changed into clothes from the emergency supplies Junho kept stocked for situations exactly like this. Gray sweatpants, black t-shirt, bare feet. She looked like she belonged here. I broke the engagement, Taemin said. Elena turned. I know, Junho told me. He also told me your family is about to have problems because of it. Problems we can handle. Are you sure? No, but I'm sure I don't want to spend my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to ask you to stay. Elena crossed the room and knelt in front of his wheelchair, took his hands. The warmth started immediately, that impossible electric sensation flooding through his body and waking up nerves that shouldn't work. Stand up, she said. Elena, stand up. Show me it still works. Taemin gripped her hands and pulled himself upward. His legs responded, shaking, unsteady, but responding. He stood in his own living room while Elena held on to him, both of them swaying slightly like dancers who'd forgotten the steps. How long can you stand? She asked. I don't know. Longest was 5 minutes at the warehouse. Let's try for 10. They stood there together while Seoul glittered outside the windows, and time stretched into something that felt different than normal minutes. Taemin's legs were screaming, but he didn't sit down. Elena didn't let go. They just existed in that impossible space between broken and healed, holding on to each other like they could rewrite biology through sheer stubborn will. At 8 minutes, Taemin's left leg started to buckle. Okay, he said, that's enough. Elena helped him back into the wheelchair. He collapsed into it, breathing hard, sweat pouring down his face. His legs were twitching uncontrollably now, muscles spasming as sensation faded back to nothing. It's getting stronger, Elena said. Each time you stand, it lasts longer. Or I'm just getting better at tolerating the pain. Maybe both. She sat on the floor beside his wheelchair, leaning against his leg. He could feel the pressure of her weight. Actually feel it. Not perfectly, not like before the shooting, but enough to know she was there. What happens now? Elena asked. Now we figure out how to live in a world where crime families want to use you. My legs only work when you touch me, and we're starting a potential gang war because I chose you over politics. Sounds complicated. It is. Worth it? Taemin ran his fingers through her damp hair. Ask me again in a year when we know if we survive. I'm asking now. Then yes. It's worth it. You're worth it. This feeling, being alive again, feeling something other than numbness, it's worth whatever comes next. Elena was quiet for a moment, then, I got a job offer. The marketing firm in Dallas emailed today. They want me to start next week. Taemin's chest tightened. Are you taking it? I don't know. Part of me wants the normal life. The boring job, the safe distance from all this chaos. But another part of me knows I'll never be normal again. Not after touching you and watching you stand. Not after being kidnapped by criminals and rescued by a mafia boss who crashed my airport gate to ask me to stay. You don't have to decide right now. Yes, I do, because if I stay, I'm all in. I can't be halfway in your world. That's how people get killed. Then don't stay. Go to Dallas. Take the job. I'll visit when I can. Liar. You won't visit. You'll throw yourself into gang war politics and protecting your territory, and eventually convince yourself I'm better off without you. I know how you think. She was right. Again. What do you want me to say? Taman asked. I want you to tell me the truth, not the noble self-sacrificing truth where you push me away for my own good. The real truth. Do you want me here or not? I want you here so badly it's destroying my judgment. I want to wake up and see you in my apartment. I want to hold your hand and feel my legs work. I want to build something with you that isn't based on guilt or obligation or trying to protect you from my world. I just want you, all of you, for as long as you'll stay. Elena smiled. Then I'm staying. What about the job? I'll email them tomorrow and decline. Then I'll figure out what comes next. Maybe I'll do freelance work. Maybe I'll learn Korean properly. Maybe I'll just exist here and see what happens when you let life surprise you instead of planning everything. That sounds terrifying. Good. You need more terrifying in your life. You've been playing it safe in a wheelchair for 12 years. Time to take some risks. Taman laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time he'd done that? Before the shooting, probably. Before his legs stopped working and his life became an endless series of calculated moves designed to project strength while hiding weakness. Elena made him feel like maybe weakness wasn't something that needed hiding. I love you, he said. The words felt strange in his mouth, foreign. He'd said them to Yuna once, lifetimes ago, and they'd felt hollow even then. But with Elena, they felt solid, real, like something he could build a life around if she'd let him. I know, Elena said. You went to the airport, you broke your engagement, you're starting a gang war. That's pretty much the definition of love in your world. What about your world? In my world, love is staying even when it's complicated, holding someone's hands while they learn to stand again, choosing adventure over safety because safety without the right person is just a different kind of death. She looked up at him. I love you too, by the way, in case that wasn't obvious. It wasn't. You spent most of our relationship yelling at me about being a criminal. You are a criminal. I'm aware. But you're my criminal now, so I guess I'm complicit. They sat there in comfortable silence while Seoul hummed below them. Somewhere in the city, Yuna was probably meeting with her family to discuss retaliation strategies. Somewhere, other crime organizations were hearing about the broken engagement and calculating whether this was the moment to move against the Kang family. Somewhere, political alliances were shifting and deals were being unmade, and the careful balance of Seoul's underworld was tilting toward chaos. But up here, 40 floors above all of it, Taemin felt something he hadn't felt in 12 years. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. Just the presence of someone who made conflict feel manageable. Someone who saw his wheelchair and his paralysis and his criminal empire and his broken body and decided he was worth staying for anyway. We should probably eat something, Elena said eventually. I haven't eaten since the airport and I'm starting to get dizzy. There's a kitchen. Can you cook? No. Can you? Barely. This is going to be a disaster. They went to the kitchen anyway. Taemin in his wheelchair, Elena barefoot on marble floors, both of them fumbling through his mostly empty refrigerator, looking for ingredients that could become dinner. They settled on scrambled eggs and toast because that was the extent of their combined culinary ability. Elena insisted on cooking while Taemin watched. She was terrible at it. Burned the toast, overcooked the eggs, spilled milk on the counter. But she laughed through all of it, completely unbothered by her own incompetence, and Taemin realized he'd never seen someone be so comfortable with failure. They ate at the kitchen island, sitting side by side, Elena on a bar stool and Taemin in his wheelchair pulled up to counter height. The eggs were rubbery, the toast was charcoal. It was the best meal Taemin had eaten in years. We need a plan, Elena said between bites. For what? For how this works. You can't keep me locked in your penthouse forever. I need to actually live, do things, exist in the world. The world is dangerous. Everything's dangerous. That's not an excuse to stop living. Fine. What do you want to do? I want to go back to Velvet Underground. I want to dance with you again, properly this time, without kidnapping and gang wars and broken engagements hanging over us. My legs don't work without touching you. So touch me. We'll figure it out. We always figure it out. Taemin looked at her. This reckless, fearless, impossible woman who'd crashed into his life and refused to leave even when leaving would have been smarter, safer, easier. Okay, he said, we'll go to Velvet Underground. When? Tonight. It's almost midnight. So? The club doesn't close until 4 a.m. We'll go now, dance until sunrise, come home and deal with the gang war fallout in the morning. Elena grinned. That's the worst plan I've ever heard. Is that a no? That's a hell yes. Velvet Underground looked exactly the same as it had 3 weeks ago when Elena had first grabbed Taemin's wheelchair and demanded he dance. Same neon lights, same pounding bass, same crowd of Seoul's elite pretending they were having fun instead of conducting business disguised as pleasure. But everything felt different now. Taemin rolled through the entrance with Elena beside him, no longer hiding in the VIP section. His security team flanked them but kept distance, letting them move through the crowd without forming an obvious protective barrier. People stared. They recognized him. Recognized the infamous moment that had gone viral when the paralyzed mafia boss had stood up and danced. Some of them probably recognized Elena too. Let them stare. Taemin didn't care anymore. They made it to the main dance floor. Then Elena stopped, looked down at him. Ready? She asked. Ready. She took his hands. The warmth flooded through him immediately, stronger now that his body was learning to expect it. His legs twitched, toes curled, calves tightened. The pain was still there, but it felt less like destruction and more like reconstruction, like his nervous system was finally remembering how to communicate with itself. Taemin stood. The crowd around them went quiet. Not completely silent like last time. The music was too loud for that, but quiet enough that people nearby stopped dancing to watch. Here was the mafia boss standing again. Here was the miracle repeating itself. Don't let go, Taemin said. Never, Elena promised. They danced. It was ugly at first. Taemin's legs were still weak, still uncoordinated, still threatening to buckle with every movement, but Elena held him steady, moved with him instead of against him, adjusted her rhythm to match his lack of rhythm, made it work through sheer stubborn determination, and slowly, impossibly, Taemin's body started to remember. Not just remember being vertical, remember how to move, how to shift weight, how to feel music through his feet instead of just his chest. His legs were screaming, but they were responding, following commands, actually doing what his brain asked them to do. 3 minutes became 5, 5 became 10, 10 became 15. The longest he'd stood since the shooting. People were filming them. Taemin could see phone screens held up around the edges of the dance floor, recording this moment for whatever viral immortality awaited. Tomorrow, this would be all over social media again. The headlines would be brutal. Speculation about his recovery. Questions about Elena. Probably conspiracy theories about experimental treatments or black market medicine. He didn't care about any of it. He was dancing with the woman he loved in the same nightclub where they'd met, and his legs were working, and for the first time in 12 years, Taemin felt like he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. I'm going to kiss you now, Elena said. Okay. She pulled him closer and kissed him while they swayed to music. Neither of them was really hearing anymore. The crowd around them started cheering. Taemin could hear it distantly, like applause from another world. Someone was definitely filming this. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Yuna's family would see this as provocation. Other organizations would interpret it as weakness or strength or whatever narrative fit their agenda. Tomorrow would be complicated, but tonight was perfect. They danced until Taemin's legs finally gave out. 23 minutes standing, a new record. Elena caught him before he fell and helped him back into his wheelchair. His legs were trembling violently, completely spent, sensation draining away like water through a sieve. But they'd worked. They'd actually worked. We should probably leave before I collapse completely, Taemin said. Probably. They made their way back through the crowd toward the exit. People moved aside, still watching, still recording, still trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. Taemin's security team formed up around them, professional and efficient, getting them to the car without incident. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet. Elena held Taemin's hand the entire time, maintaining contact, keeping the residual warmth flowing through his system even though his legs were completely unresponsive now. "Thank you," Taman said. "For what?" "For making me feel human again." "You were always human, you just forgot." "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Say things that sound simple but mean everything." Elena smiled. "It's a gift. Comes from spending 3 years traveling alone and having way too much time to think about what actually matters in life." "And what matters?" "Connection, being seen, taking risks for people you love. Not dying alone in a corporate office after 40 years of playing it safe." She squeezed his hand. "You taught me that." "Well, you and the kidnapping and the gang war and the whole impossible healing thing. I taught you through trauma. That's not great." "No teaching is great. It all comes from trauma eventually. The difference is what you do with it afterward." They arrived at the penthouse. Junho met them in the lobby with an update. "Sir, 3 organizations have made contact in the last hour. 2 want to discuss territorial agreements now that your alliance with the Seo family is broken. 1 wants to set up a meeting about Elena." "Who wants to meet about Elena?" "The Park family. They run medical research facilities. They're interested in studying her healing ability in a controlled environment." "Absolutely not. I told them that. They were insistent, offered compensation." "Tell them to fuck off. Elena's not a lab experiment." "Already did. They're not happy about it, but they backed off for now." "What about the territorial discussions?" "The Choi family wants to renegotiate shipping route access. The Lim family wants to discuss a potential alliance to fill the vacuum left by the Seo family withdrawal. Schedule meetings, but not until next week. I need time to figure out what we're actually offering." "Understood." Junho hesitated. "Sir, the Seo family also made contact. Yuna's father wants to speak with you personally." "About what?" "He didn't say, but he asked for a private meeting. No security, no intermediaries. Just you and him." That sounded like either a peace offering or an execution. 50-50 odds. "Set it up," Taman said. "Tomorrow, neutral location, and have security nearby even if he asked for none." "Yes, sir." They went upstairs. Elena collapsed on Taman's couch like she'd been awake for 48 hours straight, which she probably had been. Taman transferred from his wheelchair to sit beside her, legs completely useless again but still tingling with phantom sensation from the dancing. "You're meeting with Yuna's father?" Elena asked. "Apparently. Is that dangerous?" "Everything's dangerous. You said so yourself." "I meant, is it assassination dangerous, or just political maneuvering dangerous?" "Probably the second one. The Seo family is ruthless, but they're not stupid. Killing me would destabilize too many existing agreements. They'd lose more than they'd gain." "That's not reassuring." "It's realistic, which is the best I can offer." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then, "What if your legs stop working entirely? What if this healing thing I do, whatever it is, runs out or fades or stops happening? Then I'll be paralyzed again, same as I was for 12 years. Same as I'd be if you hadn't walked into Velvet Underground that night. And you'd be okay with that?" "I'd survive it. I survived it before." "But would you be okay?" Taman thought about it. Really thought about it. 3 weeks ago, the answer would have been no. The thought of losing this second chance at walking would have destroyed him. But now, sitting beside Elena with his useless legs and his cracked ribs and his complicated life, he realized something important. "I'd be okay," he said, "because I'd still have you, and you're the thing that makes me feel human, not the ability to walk. The walking is just a bonus." Elena's eyes were wet. "That's the least depressing thing you've ever said." "I'm growing as a person. Through trauma." "Exactly." She laughed and cried at the same time, then curled into his side. Taman put his arm around her, and they sat there while Seoul's skyline glittered outside the windows and the night stretched toward morning. This wasn't the ending he'd imagined 3 weeks ago when Elena had first crashed into his world. He'd thought she'd leave. Thought he'd marry Yuna and spend the rest of his life wondering what could have been. Thought his paralysis was permanent and unchangeable and just another fact of existence he'd learned to accept. But Elena had refused to leave, had refused to let him sacrifice himself, had refused to accept that broken things stayed broken forever. And now here they were, together, alive. fighting gang wars and learning to dance and building something that didn't have a name yet but felt like the beginning of everything he'd thought he'd lost 12 years ago when bullets tore through his spine. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked. "How different everything is now." "Good different or bad different?" "Terrifying different, which might be the same as good. I'm still figuring it out." "Let me know when you decide." "I will." But he already knew. This was good. Messy and complicated and dangerous, but good. The kind of good that came from choosing risk over safety, from letting someone see you completely, wheelchair and paralysis and criminal empire and all the broken pieces, and having them choose to stay anyway. The kind of good worth fighting for, worth standing for, worth living for. Outside, Seoul kept moving. The city didn't care about their impossible love story or their complicated future, or the gang war politics brewing in shadowed boardrooms across the districts. The city just kept turning, indifferent and eternal, the way cities always did. But up here, 40 floors above the chaos, Kang Tae-min held Elena Carter close and felt something he hadn't felt since before the shooting. Hope for tomorrow. Not certainty, not safety, just hope. The fragile, terrifying kind that came from building your life around someone who could walk away at any moment but promised they wouldn't. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Bots, 6 months later. Taemin could walk without holding Elena's hand now. Not perfectly, not for long distances. But enough to cross a room, enough to stand through short meetings, enough to feel like a person instead of a wheelchair with a person attached. The doctors called it impossible. Progressive neurological recovery from complete paralysis didn't happen naturally. But Dr. Sujin had stopped questioning it after the third round of tests confirmed what everyone could see. Taemin's spinal cord was healing. Slowly. Unpredictably. Against every law of medicine they understood. Elena called it proof that love was stronger than biology. Taemin called it the best kind of miracle. The kind you earn through stubbornness and refuse to question because questioning miracles made them disappear. The gang war with the Seo family never materialized. Yuna's father had offered a different arrangement at their private meeting. Mutual non-aggression and continued cooperation on shared interests in exchange for the Kang family staying out of European expansion plans. It wasn't friendship, but it was peace. Good enough. Elena never took the marketing job in Dallas. Instead, she'd started consulting for several Seoul-based companies on international branding, working remotely from Taemin's penthouse when she wasn't traveling to meetings or learning Korean from a tutor Junho had hired. She'd become part of his world without losing herself in it. That was the trick they'd both learned, how to exist in the dangerous parts without letting the danger consume everything good. They went back to Velvet Underground once a month. Always the same night, always the same time. A ritual of sorts. Proof that the impossible thing that had started there was still happening, still real. Tonight was one of those nights. Taemin walked into the club holding Elena's hand but not leaning on it. His legs were steady enough now to handle stairs and crowds without collapsing. Not perfect. Still weak, still prone to cramping, but functional. Actually functional in ways that went beyond temporary miracles. The club had changed, new management, new decorations, but the dance floor was still the same. They made their way to the center of it, ignoring the stares from people who recognized them. The viral videos had faded from social media months ago, but the legend remained, the Mafia Boss and the mysterious American woman who'd made him walk again. Let them stare. Let them wonder. Let them make up whatever stories they wanted about healing powers and true love and modern miracles. Taemin didn't care. He was too busy dancing with Elena, his legs working well enough to keep rhythm, his arms around her waist, her head against his chest, both of them moving to music that felt like it was written specifically for this moment. "I love you," Elena said. "I know." Still worth it? The gang war potential? The complicated politics? The broken engagement? Taemin looked down at her. This reckless woman who'd grabbed a stranger's wheelchair 3 weeks into her Seoul trip and accidentally became the most important person in his world. "Still worth it," he said. "Every complicated, dangerous, impossible part of it." She smiled. That fearless smile he'd fallen in love with. "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." "I know that too." They kept dancing while Seoul hummed around them and the night stretched toward morning and everything felt exactly the way it was supposed to feel. Not perfect, not safe, not easy. Just real. And human. And alive in ways that made the 12 years of paralysis feel like preparation for understanding what actually mattered when you finally got a second chance at living. Somewhere in the crowd, someone was probably filming them again. Tomorrow there would be new speculation, new questions, new complications to navigate. But tonight was theirs, just dancing, just movement, just two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and decided that impossible love was better than safe loneliness. The song changed, something slower. Taemin pulled Elena closer and kept moving, his legs holding steady, his heart holding steadier, everything in his complicated, dangerous, beautiful life finally feeling like it had found the right rhythm. And for the first time in 12 years, Kang Taemin wasn't just surviving anymore. He was dancing.